Chapter 56:15. Ever since Lin Yi had completed the Shangguan clan's cultivation technique, Shangguan Feixing had already accepted Lin Yi as his great martial uncle. If possible, he wanted to meet the female great martial uncle from the Shangguan clan. Therefore, he was very respectful towards Lin Yi. Lin Yi smiled faintly and said, "It's not about me, it's about the two of you." As he spoke, Lin Yi flipped his hand and took out 2 Thunder Xian pellets. These 2 pellets are called Thunder Xian pellets. Together with the Thunder Calamity, there is a high chance that you can safely advance to the profound ascension stage. However, the high chance does not guarantee success. The so-called safety does not mean that there is absolutely no danger. If you are unlucky, you are likely to be seriously injured by the backlash, and you may not be able to reach the profound ascension stage in the future. Therefore, I need you to make your own decision. Primordial Invincible and Shangguan Feixing were shocked when they heard about the profound thunder pills and breaking through to the profound ascension realm. They looked at Lin Yi in disbelief. From Lin Yi's face, they couldn't tell that he was joking at all. So it was true? Profound ascension realm. What chance? What injury? Both of them didn't hear it at all. Right now, the only thing left in their minds was the profound ascension realm, and the only thing left in their eyes were the profound thunder pills. Great martial uncle Lin, this disciple is willing to take the profound thunder pills. Shangguan Feixing didn't hesitate, and immediately chose to break through to the profound ascension realm. This was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. If he didn't grasp it when it was right in front of him, then he, Shangguan Feixing, would have lived for so many years in vain. Primordial Invincible immediately made the same choice. If he wasn't too excited, he would have spoken before Shangguan Feixing, but in the end, Shangguan Feixing beat him to it. Lin Yi wasn't surprised by their choices. Although their pursuit of strength wasn't as crazy as Yu Yi's, it was obvious that both of them were the top powerhouses in the ancient underworld. Their pursuit of strength would never stop. If that's the case, then take one each. Elder Feixing, take it first. After Elder Feixing successfully breaks through to the profound ascension realm, Elder Invincible will take the profound thunder pills, so that there won't be any unnecessary trouble. Lin Yi nodded and said, then gave the profound thunder pills to both of them. Shangguan Feixing respectfully received it with both hands. This was a treasure related to whether or not he could enter the profound ascension phase. When he held it in his hands, Shangguan Feixing, a nascent soul-perfected cultivator, actually felt slightly nervous. The invincible primordial realm beside him was obviously not much different. Someone like Bing Wuqing, who had just entered the nascent soul-perfected realm, would never understand the feelings of being trapped for hundreds of years without being able to make any progress. Grandmaster Lin, please just call me Feixing. Don't call me Elder. That's too much. Shangguan Feixing took a deep breath and remembered how Lin Yi addressed him. He immediately asked Lin Yi to change the way he addressed him. That's right. Master Lin, just call me Invincible from now on. Don't call me Elder. Primordial Invincible was annoyed. He felt that he had failed so badly today that he could only repeat what Shangguan Feixing said. Lin Yi didn't mind. After all, cultivators always respected strength. Lin Yi's strength was more than enough to be their grandmaster or senior. Alright, that's not important. Feixing, take the profound thunder pill first and prepare for the thunder tribulation. Grandmaster, where did the thunder tribulation come from? Shangguan Feixing obediently took the profound thunder pill. He then looked up at the cloudless sky and asked with some doubt. Because they came here by flying spirit beast, they were quite far from the ruined town. The commotion caused by Yu Yi's advancement to the profound ascending stage would not spread to the ruined town. Lin Yi chose this place to keep it a secret. Don't worry. If I say there's a thunder tribulation, there will definitely be a thunder tribulation. Lin Yi didn't explain. They would find out soon anyway. When the effect of the pill was about to take effect, Lin Yi said, "Get ready." Then, he used his divine sense to activate a martial technique and trigger the thunder tribulation. Lin Yi's lightning tribulation wasn't comparable to a real lightning tribulation, but Shangguan Feixing and Primordial Invincible, who had never seen a lightning tribulation before, were both shocked. Shangguan Feixing, who was in the middle of the lightning tribulation, didn't have the time to carefully observe and feel it. He was shocked for a moment, but he immediately used all his strength to break through to profound ascension. But Primordial Invincible, who was on the side, felt that Lin Yi was terrifying because of the thunder tribulation. To be able to trigger the power of heaven and earth with the strength of one person, this was no longer within the scope of martial techniques. It was beyond martial techniques, and belonged to the legendary supernatural power. To be able to meet a person like Lin Yi, who was destined to be extraordinary, Primordial Invincible suddenly felt that his luck was really good. Originally, most of his thoughts were to cooperate with Lin Yi to repay him. Now, after seeing the strength of Lin Yi, all of his thoughts turned into sincere reverence. After a short while, Shangguan Feixing successfully broke through to the profound ascension stage and easily stabilized his strength. After all, he was a veteran Yuanying stage great perfection for so many years. Compared to Yu Yi, who was promoted by the center, he was much more powerful. Until now, Yu Yi's profound ascension stage aura was still a little unstable. From this point, it could be seen the difference in accumulation between the two. Thank you, Martial Uncle. After Shangguan Feixing felt the indescribable power in his body, he immediately came over and bowed with his fists. Shangguan Feixing was not Yu Yi. He would not be blinded by the huge increase in strength, just because he entered the profound ascension stage. On the contrary, Lin Yi, who was able to easily improve his strength, became more and more unfathomable in Shangguan Feixing's heart. Therefore, Shangguan Feixing, who had reached the profound ascension stage, became more and more respectful to Lin Yi. This is also because your own strength has reached a certain level. I just provided you with an opportunity. If you can't do it yourself, I can't do anything about it. Lin Yi smiled and waved his hand. He did not have the intention to take credit in front of Shangguan Feixing. Everyone knew what was going on in their hearts. They knew what to do without saying anything, so there was no need to say anything on the surface. Shangguan Feixing did not continue to say anything. As the saying goes, great kindness cannot be thanked with words. Obviously, Lin Yi's kindness to him could not be offset with words of gratitude. Anyway, in the future, he will firmly follow Lin Yi and be at his beck and call. Chapter 56:16. Lin Yi turned his head and gestured to Primordial Invincible to take the pill. Primordial Invincible nodded, took a deep breath, raised his head, and took the Thunder Xian pill. Shangguan Feixing quietly retreated to the side, consciously guarding Lin Yi and Primordial Invincible. When Lin Yi used a martial skill to trigger the Thunder Retribution again, it was Shangguan Feixing's turn to sigh. Although he had experienced it just now, he still felt that it was incredible. Even though Shangguan Feixing was already an expert in the early stage of Mysterious Ascension realm, he still felt that it was very dangerous to face such a powerful Thunder Retribution, because at this moment, there was no Thunder Xian pill that could neutralize and absorb the power of the Thunder Retribution. Primordial Invincible quickly completed his advancement in the Thunder Retribution. He was a more experienced nascent soul great perfection than Shangguan Feixing, so his accumulation was naturally deeper. From the stabilized aura, he was also stronger than Shangguan Feixing. Lin Yi did not ask how many spiritual roots they had integrated in the end. Firstly, it was not convenient for them to ask. Although Lin Yi knew that they would definitely answer if he asked, it was obviously not a reason. Secondly, Lin Yi used the advancement method of Heaven Stage Island. But after the actual advancement, it was not certain whether it would be the same as Heaven Stage Island. After all, the advancement of the ancient small Jianghu mainly relied on the divine sense, so it was not convenient to ask this question. Anyway, the leader could ask Yu Yi. Master Lin, I, Primordial Invincible, am not very good with words, so I won't say anything unnecessary. If you need my help in the future, please don't hesitate to ask. Primordial Invincible's heart was full of joy. Lin Yi smiled and congratulated him a few words, then changed the topic. When the leader went to Luo Mountain, he would really need the two of them immediately. Martial Uncle, the time to challenge the 4 great sects is about to begin, right? This time, I will also go and have a look. If the Qingquan sect and the 5 Elements sect don't know what's good for them, We can just kick them away and play by ourselves. Previously, Shangguan Feixing had gone into seclusion to study the completed mental cultivation techniques. However, Shangguan Qingyun must have been reporting to him about the situation of the archaic meeting, so Shangguan Feixing wasn't unfamiliar with it at all. Now that he had become a mysterious ascended early-stage expert, Shangguan Feixing was no longer in a hurry to study the mental cultivation method. If Jadian sect wanted to become one of the four great sects, as a grand disciple, he still had to support Grand Master Lin Yi. Let's see how it goes. I don't think they will really do anything out of line. Lin Yi smiled faintly. The matter regarding the four great sects had basically been decided. After being able to use his divine sense to execute martial techniques, who else in the supreme ancient underworld could be a match for Lin Yi? At present, the three profound ascending stage cultivators, who had just been promoted, were not even a match for Lin Yi. If he really wanted to overthrow the Qianquan sect and the Five Elements sect, it would just be a piece of cake for Lin Yi. The only trouble was the center. He didn't know how far the center's experiment had progressed. Logically speaking, it wouldn't succeed so quickly. The most worrying thing was that they had already done the research before. Now they just needed to add the blue flood dragon gene, and it would be completed. The three of them boarded the flying spirit beast and quickly flew to the ruined town. The time was almost up. Lin Yi had already decided to solve the four challenges as soon as possible. After arriving at the ruined town, the four great sects and 10 small sects had already gathered and were ready for the final four challenges. Because Lin Yi hadn't appeared yet, the people of Jadian sect naturally wouldn't come out to challenge. As for the Qianquan sect and the Five Elements sect, they didn't rush them either. Everyone was waiting tacitly. Before Lin Yi went over, he said to Primordial Invincible, "Invincible, in this four challenges, our Jadian sect will challenge the Qianquan sect, and then your Thousand Blades sect will challenge the four great sections." Originally, although the Thousand Blades sect was ranked second among the 10 small sects, because you didn't meet the prerequisite of having 3 nascent soul stage cultivators, you were qualified to challenge, but you couldn't. Now that you are already in the profound ascending stage, it doesn't matter anymore. I understand. Primordial Invincible nodded in agreement. In fact, the one he wanted to challenge the most was the Qianquan sect. After all, the enmity between the two sects was too deep. Plus, Primordial Invincible had just been crippled by the Qianquan sect. If it wasn't for Lin Yi, he might not even be able to get out of his bed, let alone an early profound ascending stage cultivator. However, since Lin Yi had said that the Jadian sect was going to challenge the Qianquan sect, it meant that this was part of Lin Yi's plan. Let alone the fact that the Thousand Blades sect was ranked second. Even if they were ranked first, they would still leave the Qianquan sect for Lin Yi to deal with. Lin Yi nodded his head and didn't say anything else. Among the 4 big sects, the Shangguan clan was definitely not an option. Lin Yi didn't need to remind Lin Yi about this. After all, Shangguan Feixing was right next to him. Even if Primordial Invincible was stupid enough to challenge the Shangguan clan, he might not be able to defeat Shangguan Feixing. Furthermore, Lin Yi would never allow such a situation to happen. Without a doubt, the Five Elements sect, which had some enmity with Lin Yi, was the best target. Although Lin Yi didn't say it out loud, his plan was basically the same. The Heaven's Enlightenment faction didn't have any stance, so Lin Yi didn't have any intention of targeting them. If the Snow Sword faction could gather 3 nascent Soul Realm warriors, they could continue challenging the Heaven's Enlightenment faction. Unfortunately, Yu Taizong had become Yuan, and Xue Jianfeng had betrayed the Snow Sword faction and joined the core sect. The only one left was Bing Wuqing, who didn't have the qualifications to challenge the 4 big sections. Unless Lin Yi could turn Bing Wuqing into a profound ascending realm warrior, she would definitely lose. In just a few words, the 3 of them had arrived at the edge of the stage. Shangguan Qingyun saw that his father had arrived as well, so he quickly came over and greeted Lin Yi. After that, he brought Shangguan Feixing to the stage. After all, this position originally belonged to Shangguan Feixing. Shangguan Qingyun was also qualified to come up, but his ranking was still lower than Shangguan Feixing's. The Shangguan clan has 2 geniuses two perfected nascent soul realm warriors. After this competition, I'm afraid their ranking will rise by a few ranks. Why don't you just say that the Shangguan clan will be able to reach the top of the four big sects? There are only 3 positions left, alright? Stop talking. Lin Yi and Primordial Invincible are here. The 4 big challenges are about to begin. Who do you think the Blue Cloud sect will choose to challenge? It shouldn't be their own backing the Shangguan clan, right? Do you think the Blue Cloud sect is as stupid as you? I think most of them will challenge the Heaven's Enlightenment faction. I think it's more likely to challenge the Five Elements sect. The Blue Cloud sect had a conflict with the Five Elements sect before. With the appearance of Lin Yi, the people below the stage began to whisper again. There were all kinds of things being said, but no one said the truth. The 4 big challenges were about to begin. After Lin Yi arrived, he called the Great Elder of the Ruins town and said, "You can start the 4 big challenges now." Chapter 56-17. The Great Elder of the Ruins town glanced at Lin Yi and said indifferently, "It's not time yet. Why are you in such a hurry?" Ijia said with dissatisfaction, "When will it be time? We will tell you when it is time. Do you think that you are already one of the top 4? You even want to meddle in this matter?" The Great Elder of the Ruins town mocked Ijia indifferently. If Ijia was not a good-tempered person, he would have turned against him. Chi Danei saw that the faces of the Jadian sect people were not looking good, so he immediately laughed and said, "Everyone from the Jadian sect, don't be so impatient. We have waited for a day, it's not a big deal. Today is an important day. We are likely to witness the birth of a new top 4. So we should wait for the auspicious time to start." In fact, this was one of the methods discussed by Tribulation Immortal, Ma Zedong and Chi Danei, which was to buy as much time as possible for Tribulation Immortal to come here. Tribulation Immortal, Ma Zedong and Chi Danei should have arrived a long time ago, but he was in a critical moment of closed-door training, so it was delayed until now. From his reply, it seemed that his cultivation had improved again. Although he still could not break through to the Profound Ascension stage, he could be regarded as half a step away from the Profound Ascension stage, which was more than twice as powerful as a normal Yuanying stage cultivator. Once Tribulation Immortal, the first Yuanying stage cultivator, arrived, the Qingquan sect would be as stable as a mountain. No one knew what agreement Chi Danei had with the 2 sects, but he actually gave up his neutral position and spoke for the Qingquan sect. Lin Yi glanced at Chi Danei and nodded. "All right. How long until the auspicious time arrives?" Chi Danei and Tribulation Immortal looked at each other, knowing that they would not be able to pass the time without a clear time, so they could only say with a smile, "In another hour. It will be the most auspicious time today. Then we will wait for an hour." Lin Yi did not waste any more time. Since they were going to settle everything today, it was not a big deal to wait for an hour more. It was just enough time for Yue to continue to consolidate his strength. Thinking of Yue, Lin Yi used his divine sense to find his position. He was sitting in the last row of the Jadian sect's phalanx, practicing quietly, which made Lin Yi very satisfied. In fact, Yue was very excited at this moment. He was still praying nonstop, hoping that all the people from the Green Cloud sect would fail. It would be best if all of them died. Then, Lin Yi would have no choice but to send him, Yue, to save the situation. He wanted everyone in the small world to see that he, Yue, was the legendary super strong practitioner of the Black Ascension stage. He was a god who stood in the sky and looked down on the whole world. Yu use his, Yu Tian, if Lin Yu, and he would wake, if Tu would Yu, of Eu of Tian he. Yu, he of you, he you of. You the and you of Chin you. Yu, at you the you of you he. Let's start now. We are all busy, and it's not a good idea to waste time like this. The great elder of Tian Yu had no other choice. He looked at Yu Zhenren, but he didn't get any hint, so he nodded and said, "Let's start the challenge. Tell me the rules first." Speaking of this, the great elder pretended to clear his throat, and then said in a slow tone, "This time, only the Jadian sect is qualified for the challenge. So people of the Jadian sect, please listen carefully. The rules of the challenge are very simple. After specifying the sect to be challenged, both sides will send their strongest people to fight alone. There will be a total of 3 matches, and the winner will win 2 out of 3 matches. You can choose one person to fight 3 matches, or you can send 3 people to fight 1 match each. The losers can continue to fight if they want. There is no limit to their strength. If you want, you can also send a stage of foundation establishment. Speaking of the foundation establishment stage, the Grand Elder of the ruined town glanced meaningfully at Ling Tianyu of the Thousand Blades sect, obviously mocking the fact that the Thousand Blades sect only had 2 people. I would like to remind you that if you want to become one of the Big Four, you must first fulfill the condition of having 3 original soul stage experts. One of them must be at the great completion stage of the nascent soul stage. If you don't meet the conditions, don't even think about challenging the Big Four. The Great Elder of the ruined town almost called out the Thousand Blades sect. In the eyes of the Great Elder of Ruins Town, there were only 2 people in the Thousand Blades sect. Even if the Blue Cloud sect succeeded in ascending, the Thousand Blades sect could not change the fact that they could only reach the 10 small ones. No matter what, they could not threaten the Qingquan sect. Since there was no possibility for the Thousand Blades sect to advance, and they could not afford to offend Lin Yi, it was also good to vent their anger on the Thousand Blades sect. If it were not for the fact that Lin Yi's strength was too unpredictable, the Qingquan sect and the other 2 sects would even want to directly remove Lin Yi from the Blue Cloud sect's list of original soul stage experts, so that they could even skip the challenge. Ling Tianyu was very calm, completely ignoring the Great Elder's provocation. Although he did not know that the Primordial Invincible had advanced to the Profound Ascension stage, the Primordial Invincible, who came back with Lin Yi, gave him a completely strange feeling. It was as if staying beside the Primordial Invincible made him tremble from the bottom of his heart. Obviously, this was not a bad thing. Are you done? If you are, then let's start. Exanigia impatiently interrupted the long speech of the Great Elder of Ruins Town. He pointed at Dujia Junren and said, "We, the Blue Cloud sect, want to challenge the Qingquan sect." There was a sudden uproar. Most people guessed that the Blue Cloud sect would choose the Enlightenment sect as their opponent. After all, the Enlightenment sect was currently the weakest sect. There were also many people who thought that the Blue Cloud sect would challenge the Five Elements sect, but basically no one thought that the opponent of the Blue Cloud sect would be the Qingquan sect. After all, the Qingquan sect had always been the leader of the 4 sections. Even if the tiger was dead, the tiger was still alive. The strongest immortal Du Nan was still standing behind the Qingquan sect like a mountain. With immortal Du Nan there, anyone who wanted to challenge the Qingquan sect would have to think twice. The title of the first original soul stage expert was not self-proclaimed. It was recognized by the small Jianghu in ancient times. Du Jiazhenren's face was livid. Even though he had expected it, being challenged by Exanigia still made him feel embarrassed. Chapter 56:18. It couldn't be helped. The rules were set by them. Even if they didn't want to, the challenge sect had to come out and accept the challenge unless they admitted defeat. Obviously, Sage Dujia would not admit defeat. In that case, the participants of the first match, please come on stage. The Great Elder of the Ruins Town was also indignant. As a member of the Qingquan sect, he looked at Lin Yi and the others with hatred. It was rare that he could continue to host the match. Lin Yi lifted his foot and was about to go up. Since Divine Sense could activate martial arts, Lin Yi could easily defeat anyone from the Qingquan sect without using Divine Sense attacks. If he went up, the 2 matches would probably take less than a minute, as long as the Great Elder of the Ruins Town didn't dawdle and drag the time. Wait! Sage Dujia saw that Lin Yi was about to go up on stage, and immediately shouted to stop him. "Lin Yi, you can't go up on stage to fight." Lin Yi raised his eyebrows and said, "What do you mean?" Sage Dujia landed on the stage and said righteously, "The rules have stated that the strongest people of the 2 sects will fight. Are you human? You are a primordial spirit." This was the second method that Sage Dujia and the other two had discussed. If time couldn't be delayed, then they would find an excuse not to let Lin Yi fight. The most unpredictable person in the Qingquan sect was Lin Yi. As long as Lin Yi was excluded, the others were nothing to worry about. Ma Zedong laughed and said, "That's right. Lin Yi, you are not human at all. Even if you go up on stage, the result can't be counted." This was blatantly pointing at Lin Yi and calling him a non-human. Ma Zedong felt so good. There was no need to mention it. Shangguan Qingyun immediately retorted, "What nonsense are you talking about? For us cultivators, the primordial spirit is the origin. It is ridiculous to say that the primordial spirit is not human. If you say that, the four great sects will lose all their face." The audience below the stage was also discussing. Most of them felt that Shangguan Qingyun was right. What primordial spirit was not human? Who didn't have a primordial spirit? Wouldn't everyone be inhuman then? To the people of the primordial underworld, the primordial spirit was the origin, and the physical body was just a bag. Therefore, the saying of a tribulation passing sage was absolutely repulsive to most people. Qi Danyi looked at them with an unfathomable expression. Then he smiled and said, "Everyone, let's not talk too much. Actually, there are no specific rules regarding whether a primordial spirit can participate in the competition. We have learned our lesson this time, and can change it in the future. As for today's competition, Elder Lin, I think you don't need to participate. Anyway, Qingyun sect is full of talents. You as the Grand Master should at least give the younger generation a chance to gain experience." At first, it seemed to be a fair judgment, but in the end, it was completely biased towards Qingquan sect. Lin Yi looked at Qi Danyi and knew that the Heaven Awakening faction was pressured to join the alliance between Qingquan sect and Five Elements sect. Fortunately, they were not shameless enough to not count Lin Yi as one of Qingyun sect's nascent soul stage experts. Otherwise, they could directly disqualify Qingyun sect's challenge qualification. They probably didn't dare to go too far. Otherwise, if Lin Yi directly turned hostile, the three sects might not be able to withstand Lin Yi's anger. It was better to use this kind of small trick to force Lin Yi to be unable to participate in the competition. In that case, Lin Yi had nothing to say. Later, if the Thousand Blades sect did not choose Five Elements sect and chose to challenge the Heaven Awakening faction, then they deserved it. It was simply a joke to say that without three nascent soul stage experts, one was not qualified to be one of the four great sects. The primordial invincible had advanced to Xiansheng, and he alone was enough to fight against 8 or 10 nascent soul stage experts. If they really fought, 8 or 10 nascent soul stage experts could only be killed by the primordial invincible in seconds. Who dared to say that the Thousand Blades sect was not qualified? Well, since Elder Qi has said so, as a martial granduncle, I really should give some opportunities to the younger generation disciples to perform. Lin Yi shrugged indifferently and said with a faint smile. In fact, if Lin Yi really wanted to participate in the competition, they couldn't stop him even if they joined forces. However, Lin Yi had a new idea, so he took the opportunity and agreed. Turning around, Lin Yi said to Exine Ijia, "Ijia, you go and experience the strength of the Qingquan sect's experts in the first round. Be careful, they are the #1 sect in the Archean era. They are very powerful." Exine Ijia did not expect to have a chance to participate in the competition. Since his strength had improved to the full completion of the nascent soul stage, he had not fought a real fight yet. He immediately nodded excitedly and said, "No problem, Martial Granduncle, just watch my performance." In the top 10 ranking competition, Exine Ijia did not even get a chance to participate in the competition. All the opportunities were taken by his disciple Jin Weifeng. Now that he finally had a chance to participate, he must perform well. After getting on the stage, Exine Ijia pointed at the Qingquan sect with his sheathed long sword and said, "Exine Ijia from the Jadian sect is here to challenge. Who from the Qingquan sect will come out?" Sage Dunan was full of hatred. The Qingquan sect used to have many experts, but more than half of them had died during the Archean era. Now that Sage Dunan was not here, who else could participate in the competition except him? Since sect leader Xian has come down personally, of course, I will also accept the challenge. Sage Dunan snorted and walked towards Xian step by step. During this period, his momentum was raised to the extreme, and the aura of the full completion of the nascent soul stage was completely revealed. Good. I'd like to see what Sage Dunan is capable of. Xian laughed and put away his sheathed long sword. He stabbed it on the ground, and his momentum burst out without any reservation. The full completion of the nascent soul stage. Although there was such a rumor that only a full completion of the nascent soul stage was qualified to challenge the top 4, it was the first time that Xian showed his full strength in front of the crowd, and it still caused a commotion. On the surface, Xian seemed to have the upper hand. After all, Sage Dunan was only a full completion of the nascent soul stage, which was much weaker than a real full completion of the nascent soul stage. Full completion of the nascent soul stage? You're quite powerful. The tribulation immortal did not seem to care at all. He sneered and kept his own pace. He walked towards Xian step by step. Every step was as if it was measured with a ruler, without any difference. To be honest, Sage Dunan was not afraid of Xian. No matter how powerful Xian was now, it did not change the fact that he was only at the early phase of the gold core stage a year ago. With such rapid improvement, even if he was at the full completion of the nascent soul stage, his foundation would not be stable. Even if Sage Dunan was slightly lower than Xian, he was confident that he could defeat Xian. Chapter 56-19. Lin Yi did not have the Qingquan sect's mental cultivation method and martial arts skills, so he could not give specific instructions to the Qingyan sect's disciples. Xian could only rely on his own experience and insight when he entered the arena. Unfortunately, Xian improved too fast, so his battle experience at this level was infinitely close to zero. When Jinren Dujia was 10 steps away from Xian, the invisible pressure made Xian feel that he could not wait any longer. With a clear whistle, he shook his right wrist, and the long sword was unsheathed like lightning. The scabbard was bounced out by Xian skillfully and hit Jinren Dujia, who was 10 steps away. Jinren Dujia's face did not change at all, and he still took a step at the same pace. The universe step. The scabbard pierced into the ground with a sharp whistle. It was supposed to be Jinren Dujia's place, but now there was no one there. Jinren Dujia's step seemed to add all the distance he had walked before. When he landed, he was already behind Xian, and he turned around to attack Xian's back with his palm. Although Xian did not have enough battle experience at this level, he was not a newbie who had never fought before. When he found that the scabbard missed, he knew something was wrong. He had already circled his long sword, using defense as offense. He did not want to win, but to avoid making mistakes. Jinren Dujia's palm hit Xian's long sword, as if he did not see Xian's long sword. Strangely, Xian's impenetrable sword did not stop Jinren Dujia's palm at all. It allowed Jinren Dujia's palm to penetrate through the long sword's defense, and almost hit Xian's back where his heart was. The universe step was so terrifying. It was not just a footwork, but a powerful martial arts skill that included follow-up attacks. Lin Yi, who was watching from the side, could not help but be slightly moved. At this critical moment, Xian did not panic. Although he did not see Jinren Dujia behind him, his sharp divine mind sensed the danger in advance. The long sword that was circling around Xian's body suddenly rose into the sky like lightning. Jinren Dujia's palm missed Xian's vital parts by a little. It only scratched the outside of Xian's waist, and most of the qi he exhaled missed. Xian, who was in the air, frowned slightly. He had suffered quite a bit in the first round. Although the attack on his waist was not a serious injury, it was enough to affect his movements. He had to end the next battle as soon as possible. It would definitely be disadvantageous for Xian if the fight dragged on. Jinren Dujia really could not be underestimated. Even though the strongest person in Qingquan sect was Jinren Dujia, was still the head of the sect. Jinren Dujia's attack missed, but there was no sadness or joy on his face. He looked up slowly and elegantly, but his eyes were locked on Exainegia's figure. The heaven and earth step was still within the time limit. The tribulation immortal stamped his feet lightly and disappeared in a flash. He appeared above the tribulation immortal like a ghost and struck out with his palm. This time, the target was Exainegia's head. The heaven and earth step was still in effect. Exainegia was in the air. He tried to turn his head to look at his previous position, trying to find traces of tribulation immortal. He did not expect that tribulation immortal had already appeared above him. He was still flying up, which was equivalent to sending his head to the palm of tribulation immortal. "Master, be careful!" Jin Weifeng, who was watching the battle, screamed. He knew that he could not help Exainegia at all. If Exainegia reacted to his warning, his head would have been smashed like a watermelon that was smashed by a hammer. Lin Yi squinted his eyes, but he did not intend to make a move. Exainegia could still handle this level of attack. What he lacked now was actual combat experience. That was why he was tricked by Jinren step by step. In terms of real strength, Exainegia was still half a level higher. Sure enough, although Exainegia could not see Jinren, not seeing him meant the greatest danger. Exainegia could not confirm the position of Jinren, so he could only display his martial arts skills to avoid being in absolute danger. Third appearance of the Cloud Dragon. This was a high-level feng shui martial arts skill in Qianyan sect. Exainegia had just mastered it after reaching the nascent soul realm. Jinren palm hit Exainegia's head, but it went through Exainegia's body directly without any force. It was completely a shadow. Jinren, who had been calm since he displayed the universe step, showed a little surprise for the first time. He did not expect that Exainegia could escape from danger with the help of martial arts skills at this critical moment. However, Jinren eyes instantly turned to another position and locked on Exainegia's figure again. To some extent, the universe step of Qingquan sect was similar to the Six Directions sect's Heaven and Earth Six Directions sect, but the universe step was obviously more powerful. After discovering Exainegia, Jinren figure flashed and disappeared. He completely ignored the fact that he could not borrow any force in the air. He appeared behind Exainegia in a flash and slapped the back of Exainegia's head. Exainegia did not seem to react at all this time. He did not move at all. However, above Jinren, a long sword with cold light suddenly pierced down. The genuine qi on the tip of the sword was fluctuating, and it almost touched the Baihui acupoint of Jinren head. The audience below the stage cried out in surprise. Although most of them couldn't see the specific details of those few moments, the occasional thrilling scene was exciting enough. Without a doubt, Jinren palm once again went through Exainegia's shadow. The third appearance of the Cloud Dragon, of course, would not only have one shadow. Would Jinren, who was full of killing intent at every step, fail so easily? No one would believe such a reversal, and no one had the time to consider such a possibility, because the next change had happened almost at the same time. Exainegia's fatal sword pierced through Jinren head smoothly, but at the same time, Exainegia did not feel any obstruction. The Jinren long sword pierced through was also a shadow. Chapter 56-20. This was his last move. Exainegia, who had used all his skills, could no longer control his body and could only fall down. The panic in his heart made him lose his cool. In a battle of this level, losing one's cool almost meant failure. Tribulation Master appeared behind Exainegia again, but the distance between them was a bit awkward. He wanted to continue attacking Exainegia with his palms, but it seemed that his hands were too short. After a series of movements in the air, Tribulation Master was like an arrow at the end of its flight. He could no longer control his movement in the air. All he could do was shake his body and attack Exainegia with an ordinary whip kick. It was impossible for such an attack to kill, or even seriously injure Exainegia. The Tribulation Immortal felt that it was better to kick Exainegia than to do nothing since he had nothing to do. It was better than nothing. Unexpectedly, Tribulation Immortal's whip kick barely reached Exainegia, due to the distance between them. However, the kick did not land on Exainegia's body. Exainegia lost control of his body and was sent flying out of the ring. His kick only grazed Exainegia's body. Exainegia's body spun and flew out of the ring. To be honest, even the tribulation-passing immortal himself did not expect this result. He wanted to seize the opportunity to gain the upper hand after landing. It would be best if he could kill Exainegia. However, it seemed to be a good idea to win the battle so easily. As long as they won the next battle, Qianquan sect would win the challenge, and the qualification of the top 10 would end here. Even if Tribulation Master Du Nan could not make it, it would not be a big problem. The first battle between Qianquan sect and Qianquan sect. The winner is Tribulation Master of Qianquan sect. The great elder of the ruins town, who always wore a poker face, announced loudly with a proud tone. His face was full of disdain. His expression was full of disdain for everyone. Look, look, look. This is the strength of Qianquan sect, the first ancient sect. The strongest one can defeat all of you without even having to fight. Come on, let me see who else is left. Who else? The onlookers were in an uproar, but they were not satisfied with the result. That's it. Sand got into my eyes. And it's gone after just a few blinks? The battle was so exciting at the beginning. How could it end so weakly? Keep fighting. What was that kick? That was so ugly. It doesn't count. Sect leader Xian, don't be discouraged. Keep going. We'll definitely win this time. Translator. Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation Sage, who had just won a round, looked gloomy. He was no longer as calm as he was when he was in the state of heaven and earth step. 7 out of 10 people supported Exainegia, and the other 3 were just here to watch the show. None of them said that he was a good fighter. Are you all fucking blind? Exainegia walked to Linny in shame and said softly, Grand Uncle, I've let you down. I was too careless this time. Please give me another chance. This time, I will defeat a transcending tribulation enlightened being even if I have to die. The rules of the challenge were that the loser was allowed to continue on stage. In any case, it was a best of 3. If you failed once, you could go on stage. If you failed the second time, it would be over. If you were willing, no one would stop you. That was why Exainegia said so. In fact, he had no confidence in defeating the transcending tribulation enlightened being. Exainegia had not seen through the transcending tribulation enlightened being's martial arts technique. Linny obviously knew this, so he patted Exainegia's shoulder and said, You're just not experienced enough, but your strength is no weaker than the transcending tribulation enlightened being. It's not impossible if you want to go on stage and win, but you have to tell me, why did you fail? Exainegia was speechless. Didn't I fail because of lack of experience? That's what you said, Grand Uncle. It seems that you really don't understand. The martial arts technique that the transcending tribulation enlightened being used was very powerful and high-end. At first, I thought it was just a kind of magical footwork. Then, I found out that the footwork had a connecting attack, which was the palm that the transcending tribulation enlightened being had been using. It's not that he couldn't use other martial arts techniques, but it would destroy the integrity of the technique. In order to let Exainegia learn from this experience, Linny took great pains to tell Exainegia what he saw in detail. After a short pause, Lin Yi's face turned serious. If that's all, the transcending tribulation enlightened being's technique isn't too difficult to deal with. Your third appearance of the cloud dragon is just enough to restrain it. But in the end, I found out that the scariest thing about the transcending tribulation enlightened being's martial arts technique is that he can instantly copy the opponent's martial arts technique within the range of his own martial arts technique. Although I guess it's just a temporary copy, it's enough for him to gain a huge advantage in the battle. Exainegia raised his head in shock and looked at Lin Yi. Grand Uncle, you mean, the transcending tribulation enlightened being actually copied my third appearance of the cloud dragon and defeated me with my own martial arts technique? It was such a ridiculous thing. However, when Exainegia thought about it carefully, he found that he completely believed it. The continuous movement and shadow of the transcending tribulation enlightened being in the air at the last moment was his third appearance of the cloud dragon. After Exainegia figured it out, He was deeply shocked by the transcending tribulation, enlightened beings one step to the universe. With such a powerful martial arts technique, it was not unreasonable that the Qingkuan sect could stand on the top of the small Jianghu in the ancient times. However, what shocked Xianijia even more was that Lin Yi could analyze the profound meaning of the transcending tribulation enlightened beings, one step to the universe, just by watching for a while. Moreover, his analysis was meticulous and flawless. How many fierce battles did he have to go through in order to have such combat experience and insight? In fact, although Lin Yi had rich combat experience, the reason why he could analyze the transcending tribulation enlightened beings, one step to the universe, so accurately, was that he was used to copying other people's martial arts technique. Without such insight, even if he had the 5 elements and the universal genuine qi, he would not be able to do it. In this aspect alone, Xianijia could not be compared with him. As the two of them spoke, a flying spiritual beast flew towards them like lightning from afar, and landed on the high platform with a gust of wind. In Ruined Town, only the 4 great sects and clans had the privilege to drive flying spiritual beasts into the town directly. Therefore, this person was undoubtedly a member of the 4 great sects and clans. When the transcending tribulation enlightened being saw the middle-aged man in a Taoist robe coming down from the flying spiritual beast, he laughed and greeted him. "Senior brother Du Nan, you're finally here. I've been waiting for you for a long time." Chapter 56-21. Everyone looked at the ordinary-looking middle-aged man in a Taoist robe. He was the #1 nascent soul cultivator in the archaic Jianghu. Although he did not show his qi, there was still an invisible power that made him stand out from the crowd. "You can't even handle such a small matter?" Enlightened Master Du Nan glanced at the Jade Cloud sect's side, then scolded Enlightened Master Du Nan in a slightly dissatisfied tone. Immortal Du Nan thought to himself that he would not be able to handle it if he did not play some tricks. However, he still put on a smile and said, "Since you're here, there's nothing I can't handle. It's mainly because I can't feel at ease without you." Hearing that, Immortal Du Nan's eyes softened a lot. It seemed that they had a good relationship. However, when the onlookers saw that Immortal Du Nan, who was dignified and serious just a moment ago, had become a completely different person with a bright smile on his face, they did not know how to react. "Senior brother Du Nan, this year, the Green Cloud sect really doesn't know what's good for them. How dare they challenge our Qingkuan sect? I've already won a challenge against Xianijia, the current leader of the Green Cloud sect. If I win another one, I'll be able to defeat the Green Cloud sect." Immortal Du Nan glanced at Xianijia with disdain. He believed that he could still defeat Xianijia if they fought again. And this time, Immortal Du Nan was not going to let Xianijia go so easily. After all, he had challenged the Qingkuan sect. He had to teach Xianijia a lesson. "Why don't you kill him?" Immortal Du Nan followed Immortal Du Nan's line of sight, and looked at Xianijia coldly. Someone who dared to challenge the Qingkuan sect did not deserve to live. "I wanted to kill him too, but I failed." Immortal Du Nan smiled embarrassedly and said, "Senior brother, don't worry. Xianijia is the most powerful person in the Green Cloud sect. I guess he'll be the next one. Although he's at the peak of the nascent soul realm, he's not that powerful. Just wait and see how I'll deal with him." Immortal Du Nan waved his hand and said, "Forget it. Since I'm already here, let me exercise a little, and let the people in the archaic Jianghu know the consequences of challenging the Qingkuan sect." Tribulation Master was overjoyed. He clapped his hands and laughed. "With senior brother Du Nan's help, Xianijia will definitely die." After that, Tribulation Immortal turned around and laughed loudly at Lin Yi and Xianijia. "Xianijia, who's up for the second round? Don't tell me you're still going to come up? Ha ha ha. If it's really you, then let me give you a piece of advice. Hurry up and leave behind your last words. This time, the one on the stage is my senior brother, the #1 expert of half-step profound ascension. When the time comes, don't even have the chance to beg for mercy." Lin Yi sneered. He put his hand on Xianijia's shoulder to stop him from fighting. Fighting with Tribulation Immortal could improve Xianjia's fighting experience. However, if he fought with Immortal Du Nan, Xianjia might not even have time to react before he was killed by Immortal Du Nan. The difference between a half-step profound ascension and a normal nascent soul realm cultivator was as big as the difference between a nascent soul realm cultivator and a nascent soul realm cultivator. Knowing this, Lin Yi certainly would not let Xianjia take the risk. Heh, half-step profound ascension. You scared us to death. Lin Yi looked at Immortal Du Nan sarcastically. Although the conversation between Immortal Du Nan and Tribulation Master was whispering, Lin Yi still heard every word. Lin Yi really wanted to kill Immortal Du Nan because of what Immortal Du Nan said. Why don't you kill him? In Immortal Du Nan's eyes, Xianjia was just an ant that could be killed at any time. He did not care about his life or death. If that was the case, Lin Yi would certainly let him know who was the ant. Since you're scared to death, just admit defeat. Then come here and kowtow. If you do that, we the Qingquan sect will consider sparing your Green Cloud sect's life. Immortal Du Nan said arrogantly. It seemed that his biggest backer, Immortal Du Nan, was here. Lin Yi did not bother to pay attention to him. Immortal Du Nan, who had just performed the Heaven and Earth step, impressed Lin Yi. But now, Immortal Du Nan's IQ seemed to have plummeted. If Lin Yi really paid attention to him, his IQ would plummet as well. Since the number 1 nascent soul cultivator is here, we the Green Cloud sect can only find a random disciple to deal with him. The sarcasm on Lin Yi's face became more and more obvious. He turned around and waved at Yue, who was in the last row of the Green Cloud sect. Yue, come here. Ha 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 ha, is it finally my turn? Lin Yi, you little bastard. You still have to rely on my strength in the end. Ha 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 ha. Yue laughed wildly in his heart. He felt that the time for him to dominate the world had finally come. But on the surface, he still put on a respectful look. When he heard Lin Yi's call, he immediately ran over, not daring to waste a second. Uncle Master, what instructions do you have for me? Because it was in front of others, Yue followed Lin Yi's instructions, and also called Lin Yi Uncle Master. Although the seniority was much lower, Yue felt that he did not need to call him master or anything. It was really great. You go up this time. Just deal with this number 1 nascent soul cultivator. Lin Yi said lightly, and waved his hand to signal Yue to go up. Yue still bowed and cupped his fists and said respectfully, Yes, Uncle Master. Lin Yi was very keen to notice the smile on the corner of Yue's mouth. He guessed that this guy must be thinking in his heart, what bullshit half-step profound ascension. Do I need Master Yu to deal with it? I can blow him away with a breath. I can drown him with a spit. And so on. It had to be said that Lin Yi really understood Yue. Although it was not a very accurate description, it was basically the same. When Spiritual Master Du Nan saw that Lin Yi sent out a disciple that he had never heard of, he was slightly startled. He thought to himself, what the hell is this? Are you looking down on me? The number 1 nascent soul cultivator in the ancient small Jianghu. Ha ha ha, senior brother Du Nan. The Green Cloud sect is really afraid. Seeing that senior brother is going up, no one dares to come out. They can only send the weakest disciple to deal with it. If he dies, then so be it. It's really ridiculous. Spiritual Master Du Nan thought that he had seen through the truth, and said with a laugh. Although Lin Yi said to deal with it, the meaning of the two was obviously completely different. Chapter 56:22. However, Immortal Du Nan was a half-step mysterious ascension cultivator, the top cultivator in the primitive Jianghu. It was beneath his dignity to fight a weakling in the foundation establishment stage. If he had not agreed to fight, Immortal Du Nan would have turned around and left. Did the Green Cloud sect come up with this disgusting trick because they knew they couldn't defeat him? Immortal Du Nan was enraged. After he stood still on the stage, he looked up at the sky at a 45-degree angle and said coldly and arrogantly, Nobody, it's your honor to be killed by me. I'll give you a chance. Tell me your name and come here to die. Yue was furious at once. Who the hell do you think you are? How dare you ask me to tell you my name? Do you think you are Lin Yi? It's my honor to die in your hands. I'll beat you to death and let you know what an honor is. Yui cursed him in his mind out of habit, but he was not polite with his words. Immortal Dunan was not Lin Yi, so he had no scruples. Are you deaf? Can't you hear Martial Granduncle Lin Yi call you Yui? Is it because I haven't beaten you for a long time? Are you itching for a beating? Immortal Dunan was furious. As the top cultivator in the primitive Jianghu, no one had dared to scold him with such vulgar words for many years. Even his sworn enemy, the invincible primordial sect, would not do that. This disciple of the Green Cloud sect, who came out of nowhere, must be tired of living. You're courting death, Immortal Dunan shouted in a low voice. He moved and appeared in front of Yui. Then, he quickly slapped Yui's face. According to Immortal Dunan's calculation, this casual slap was enough to send the stupid disciple of the Blue Cloud sect's head flying. Such a violent killing blow could not only relieve the resentment in his heart, but also serve as a great deterrent to the other sections. However, to Immortal Dunan's disbelief, under his lightning-fast slap, the nameless man actually had time to stretch himself and then returned a slap. The slap landed on Immortal Dunan's face cleanly. All of a sudden, the world in Immortal Dunan's eyes turned upside down. Before he could react, he had fallen to the edge of the ring with a bang. After rolling for a few times, he stopped at the edge of the ring, unlike Xianigia, who directly got out of the ring. What kind of speed was this? What kind of strength was this? Immortal Dunan kept spitting out blood, but he was still thinking about this question. Although Reverend Dunan's slap was just a casual one, he was quite confident that there were no more than 6 people in the ancient small Jianghu who could react and defend against it. And there were no more than 2 people who could fight back after defending against it. But not only did he not defend himself, he even stretched himself and then fought back. Immortal Dunan had never heard of such a thing. Immortal Dunan could not accept the fact that someone he had never heard of appeared in front of him. Yui waved his hand, curled his lips and said, "You're so thick-skinned, old man. My hand hurts. Get up, I haven't had enough fun yet." Ha 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 ha. I must give you full marks for my acting skills. Lin Yi, you little bastard, what do you think? Yui couldn't help glancing at Lin Yi, only to find that Lin Yi was looking at him with a faint smile. He quivered and thought to himself, I shouldn't be too complacent, or I'll make Lin Yi a little bastard. So Yui smiled obsequiously at Lin Yi, turned around, and ran to Reverend Dunan. Yui didn't use his full strength just now, because he wanted to keep Reverend Dunan alive, so that he could continue to torture him. What Reverend Dunan said just now had offended Yui. Didn't he know that only Master Yu could say those words? Unfortunately, it was the first time that Yui had used the power of a cultivator at the mysterious ascension stage, so he didn't know how much genuine chi he should use. Besides, Reverend Dunan was not prepared at all, so the simple slap made Reverend Dunan spit out blood continuously. He didn't even have the chance to take a recover pill, and he died before Yui arrived. Fuck, you're not dead, right? Don't die. Yui felt that Reverend Dunan's breath was disappearing quickly, so he immediately grabbed his collar and slapped him a few times. Then he shouted anxiously, Are you made of paper? You're so weak. I haven't made you feel honored. Don't die. Reverend Dunan, who was standing on the side, felt cold all over. He wanted to say that even if his senior fellow apprentice was not dead, he would die after being tortured by Yui. However, it seemed that he didn't even have the strength to speak, and could only stand there trembling. Reverend Dunan, the most powerful cultivator in the ancient small Jianghu, the leader of the 4 sects, the Qingquan sect, was killed by a slap. It happened right in front of them, but everyone felt that it was so unreal. Was it a dream? Was it a dream? Everyone was shocked and there was no sound. Therefore, Yuyi's scream and the crisp slap on Reverend Dunan's face became clearer. Finally, someone came to himself and shouted, The mysterious ascension stage. The shout seemed to call back everyone's soul. All of a sudden, everyone burst into the strongest sound wave, screaming, roaring, and hysterical shouting. The mysterious ascension stage. The legendary mysterious ascension stage. The legendary mysterious ascension stage that had never appeared in the ancient small Jianghu for thousands of years. In the huge sound wave, Reverend Du Nan's face turned pale, and he was about to fall. He never thought that besides the unfathomable Lin Yi, there was a super powerful cultivator in the mysterious ascension stage in the Green Cloud sect. Why was there a cultivator in the mysterious ascension stage? Had the restriction of the mysterious ascension stage in the ancient small Jianghu been broken? Enough, Lin Yi said lightly. His voice was not loud, but it was clearly heard by Yu Yi through the huge noise around him. Yu Yi's body shook, and he realized that he was now representing the Green Cloud sect. This kind of behavior, which was equivalent to whipping a corpse, was indeed a disgrace to the Green Cloud sect. From Lin Yi's voice, he could feel that Lin Yi seemed to be a little unhappy. It's not easy for me to be happy, but Lin Yi, the little bastard, comes to get in my way again. When I deceive you and increase my level, and get out of your control, I will return what I owe to you today. Yu Yi thought fiercely, but he had already left Reverend Du Nan's body, and appeared beside Lin Yi like a flash of lightning. Uncle Master, I have completed my task. I wanted to deal with him a few more times, but I didn't expect that the most powerful cultivator in the nascent soul realm was no different from a piece of paper. Yu Yi bowed and reported to Lin Yi with a big smile on his face. Chapter 56-23. It was fine if they didn't know before, but now even a fool would understand that Yu Yi was a genuine master of the profound ascending stage. However, this master of the mysterious ascending stage talked to Lin Yi so respectfully and flatteringly. He called Lin Yi Grand Master. Lin Yi was also in the mysterious ascending stage. In the world of cultivators, the strong were respected. Even if Lin Yi was really a Grand Master, when the strength of the younger generation reached the same level, they would become the same generation. Yu Yi continued to call Lin Yi Grand Master, which only proved that Lin Yi's strength was above Yu Yi's. However, when they thought about it, it did not seem strange at all. Xianijia and the others in the full cycle of nascent soul realm also addressed Lin Yi as Grand Uncle Master. They did not think about it before and thought that it was just an honorific title for Lin Yi. Now everyone understood that Lin Yi's strength had really surpassed the nascent soul realm. Lin Yi snorted and said, "Don't talk nonsense. You're still the one in the third round. Don't kill him so quickly this time, understand?" Yu Yi was suddenly excited. He quickly patted his chest and said, "Don't worry, Grand Master. I will be careful. I won't kill him so quickly. I will definitely kill him after a while." Tribulation Jinren had been paying attention to the situation here. If he did not pay attention to the appearance of a mysterious ascending stage cultivator, wouldn't he be courting death? When he heard the conversation between Lin Yi and Yu Yi, he was completely dumbfounded. They still want to fight. How to fight? Was he going to be a punching bag to be beaten? The universe step was indeed exquisite and profound, but when the gap in strength was large to a certain extent, no matter how exquisite a martial technique was, it would be useless. It was just like how a supercar, no matter how cool its appearance and performance was, would immediately fall apart and turn into a pile of junk if it was hit head-on by a bulldozer. Xianijia looked at Tribulation Jinren with a smile and squinted his eyes and asked, "Tribulation Jinren, who will be the one in the third round? You won't be the one to fight, right?" "Ha ha ha, if it's really you, then let me give you a piece of advice. Hurry up and leave behind your last words. Although this time it's just an ordinary disciple of our sect, and not the #1 expert of half-step profound ascension, I'm worried that you won't even have the chance to beg for mercy. Fuck your ordinary disciple, fuck your half-step profound ascension." Of course, a profound ascension expert was not a half-step profound ascension expert. A profound ascension expert was an ordinary disciple? Who are you trying to fool? Immortal Dujia was too tired to complain. He didn't even care about what Xianijia said just now. Now he just wanted to save his own life. After all, no one wanted to die easily after reaching such a high level of cultivation. We, the Heaven and Earth sect, will not participate in the third round. The Heaven and Earth sect will directly admit defeat. Congratulations to the Green Cloud sect for becoming one of the new top 4 sects. Sage Du Jie squeezed out an ugly smile. cupped his hands and said insincerely. There was no other way. Facing a profound ascension expert, Sage Du Jie did not even dare to think of resisting. If he admitted defeat, he might have a chance to make a comeback in the future. As the saying goes, where there's life, there's hope. Yui was suddenly unhappy. He pulled a long face and pointed at Sage Du Jie and said, "Hey, what's your name? Do you have any backbone? How can you do such a thing like admitting defeat? Is the Heaven and Earth sect shameless? Hurry up and let's fight for 300 rounds. I promise I won't kill you." Sage Du Jie turned around and left. Facing this kind of shameless profound ascension expert, it was useless to say anything. He couldn't beat him. And if he said too much, he would come up and fight. And then, he couldn't beat him. What else was there to say? Looking at Yui, who was cursing on the stage, the onlookers were also dumbfounded. Was this the legendary profound ascension expert? Why did they feel that something in their heart had collapsed? Lin Yi was also speechless. After this, Yui changed his face. He really began to be completely shameless. His personality changed a bit too much. Was he schizophrenic? Could it be that Little E still had some divine sense? But Little E didn't seem to be like this. This was a bit like his master, ancestor Xianxin. After quickly calling Yui back, Lin Yi said to the great elder of the ruins town, who was dumbfounded, "The result is out, can you announce it now?" The grand elder of ruins town looked at Lin Yi a little dazed. He subconsciously agreed twice before coming back to his senses. But now he was also very embarrassed. The Heaven and Earth sect was no longer the 4 big sects, but the 10 small sections. As the great elder of the ruins town who came from the Heaven and Earth sect, what kind of great elder of the ruins town was he? Lin Yi frowned slightly, and also understood the situation of the great elder of the ruins town. He waved his hand casually and said, "You continue to host anyway. You are familiar with the process, there is no need to add more trouble." Yes, this old man understands. The great elder of the ruins town had a cold sweat on his back. He didn't dare to say anything more. In his heart, he thought that he didn't offend Lin Yi and the Green Cloud sect too much before, right? Would they find fault in the future? The Green Cloud sect challenged the Heaven and Earth sect, best of 3. The Green Cloud sect won, and became one of the new 4 big sects. Everyone congratulate them. The great elder of the ruins town took the lead to applaud with a smile on his face, but his heart was bleeding and crying. The Green Cloud sect's ascension was stepping on the corpse of the Heaven and Earth sect. He had to take the lead to applaud and congratulate them. How humiliating. Lin Yi signaled Xianijia, the leader of the Green Cloud sect, to go up and express his gratitude. Xianijia knew that Lin Yi was not willing to do it, so he could only happily go up and thank him. To be able to see the Green Cloud sect become one of the 4 big sects, Xianijia really felt like he was in a dream. A year ago, he was just a low-level golden elixir realm candidate elder in the Green Cloud sect. But now he was one of the leaders of the 4 big sects and families. What could be more unbelievable than this? After a moment, the great elder of the ruins town continued. The new 4 big sects have been born. Now we will begin the ranking of the 4 big sects. Wait, now that the Green Cloud sect has ascended, our Thousand Blades faction should be able to continue to challenge the 4 big sects, right? Primordial Invincible suddenly interrupted. Ma Zayden suddenly became anxious. The Green Cloud sect directly challenged the Heaven and Earth sect, and now it was almost certain that they could become the leader of the 4 big sections. What a joke! If the Green Cloud sect was not the leader of the 4 big sects, who would be? Of course, this was not the point. The point was, if the Thousand Blades faction wanted to challenge the 4 big sects, who would be their target? Without a doubt, it would be the close ally of the Heaven and Earth sect, the 5 Elements sect. In the past few days, the 5 Elements sect and the Heaven and Earth sect often fought against the Green Cloud sect and his partners. The Thousand Blades faction lost their old rival, the Heaven and Earth sect. Then only the 5 Elements sect was left. Chapter 56-24. The great elder of the ruins town had been mocking the Thousand Blades sect just now. Naturally, he didn't want the Thousand Blades sect to have a chance to challenge them. However, The Thousand Blades sect and the Jadian sect had a close relationship. Now that the Jadian sect was in power, it didn't seem wise to target the Thousand Blades sect. Anyway, the Qingquan sect had gone down. What did the life and death of the Five Elements sect have to do with him? Thus, the great elder of the ruined town decided to just pretend to be dead. The great elder of the ruins town didn't speak, but Qi Dana stood up to support Ma Zedong and said, Master Ma is right. There has never been only one nascent soul stage in the history of the four great sects. So although the Thousand Blades sect is qualified to challenge the four great sects, they are not qualified to become one of the four great sects. Don't you think so, great elder? Qi Dana said with a smile. Finally, he threw the topic to the great elder of the ruins town who was pretending to be dead. Anyway, the Qingquan sect had already gone down. Who cared about the great elder of the ruins town? It was better to take advantage of him when there was a chance. The great elder of the ruins town cursed Qi Dana in his heart. But after all, he was the host of the archaic grand meeting. He could only bite the bullet and say, well, the rules do say so. But now the new generation has a new atmosphere. Whether we should continue to abide by the rules of the four great sects can still be discussed. What he meant was, go fight among yourselves. Don't drag me down with you. But this problem was not a problem anymore. Primordial Invincible laughed and said, a nascent soul great perfection is indeed not qualified to be one of the four great sects. But who told you that I am nascent soul great perfection? Everyone was stunned. They looked at Primordial Invincible in confusion. Although they didn't say anything, they already had some bad guesses in their hearts. Then they found that they could get rid of the guesses and directly turn it into a bad feeling. Primordial Invincible looked around proudly, completely unleashing his aura. The powerful pressure he exuded caused everyone present to be unable to muster any thoughts of resisting. Compared to the aura Yui had unleashed earlier, this aura was even stronger. Yui was gnashing his teeth in hatred. He thought that Lin Yi was a little bastard. He actually raised Primordial Invincible to the Profound Ascension stage. And he was even stronger than me. I just became the number one of the world in the archaic small world. And in the blink of an eye, I became the number two. Ma Zedong was really dumbfounded this time. Were the Profound Ascending stage all cabbages planted in the ground now? When the time came, he would be able to casually pull one out. When Invincible Primeval was at the peak of the nascent soul stage, Ma Zedong didn't think that Five Elements sect would be Invincible Primeval's opponent. After all, the challenge rules allowed experts like Invincible Primeval to fight continuously, let alone now. No. If this goes on, the Five Elements sect will be destroyed. Although the Heaven Awakening faction is weaker, the Primordial Invincible is already at the Profound Ascension stage. There is no difference between the Five Elements sect and the Heaven Awakening faction. Because of Lin Yi, the Primordial Invincible will definitely challenge our Five Elements sect. I must think of a way. Cold sweat dripped from Ma Zedong's forehead. Thoughts flashed through her mind, and the expression on her face changed rapidly. Finally she shouted, our Five Elements sect has made an important decision. We will become a subordinate sect of Blue Cloud sect, and learn alchemy from Master Lin. Master Lin's alchemy ability is simply earth-shattering. Today, I, Ma Zedong, will become Master Lin's disciple. Master Lin, Martial Uncle, please accept disciple Ma Zedong. Spiritual Master Du Jie's eyes turned black. This bastard Ma Zedong was too cunning. He actually came up with such a shameless idea. He was even more shameless than that Yui. Why did Qingquan sect choose such a person as an ally? It was normal for them to fail. The Primordial Invincible Primeval was startled. He originally planned to challenge the Five Elements sect. After all, it was second only to Qingquan sect that was against Lin Yi. But after Ma Zedong's move, the Primordial Invincible Primeval was a little hesitant. He turned to look at Lin Yi. Lin Yi was also a little stunned. Obviously, he didn't expect Ma Zedong's move. Martial Uncle, although our Five Elements sect's alchemy ability is a bit poor, we have many alchemists. As long as we can get the guidance of Martial Granduncle, our Five Elements sect's alchemy ability will definitely be greatly improved, so that Martial Granduncle can have more time to cultivate. Martial Uncle, please give me a chance. Ma Zedong completely threw caution to the wind. If she couldn't convince Lin Yi, the Five Elements sect would be kicked out of the top 4 sections. Moreover, Ma Zedong felt that what she said was very reasonable. This was simply a genius idea, turning crisis into opportunity. In terms of wit, Ma Zedong want to ask who else can do it. Lin Yi pinched his chin and thought for a moment. He couldn't deny that he was moved by Ma Zedong's last few words. Indeed, with the Five Elements sect's help, Lin Yi would be able to save a lot of trouble. Furthermore, in this small world, Lin Yi himself wasn't able to concoct any pills. So if he accepted Ma Zedong, he would gain a lot of benefits. Therefore, Lin Yi readily nodded and said, "All right then, from today onwards, the Five Elements sect will become our Blue Cloud sect's subordinate sect." As soon as these words were spoken, the crowd burst into an uproar once again. A sect of the 4 great sects becoming a sect of another 4 great sects was something that had never happened before. But now, it had been decided with just a few words? Wasn't this a little too hasty? Since Lin Yi had spoken, Primordial Invincible couldn't continue challenging the Five Elements sect. Since he couldn't challenge the Shangguan clan, then there was only the Enlightenment faction left. In order to prevent the Enlightenment faction from joining Lin Yi or the Blue Cloud sect, Primordial Invincible quickly pointed at Qi Danyi and said, "The Thousand Blades sect challenges the Enlightenment faction." The Thousand Blades sect challenges the Enlightenment faction. The rules remain the same. Both sides, please come onto the stage. The great elder of the ruined town immediately announced. He didn't care about the rise and fall of the top 4 sections. Since the Qingquan sect was already one of the top 10 sects, it didn't matter to him who would come up first. Primordial Invincible stepped onto the stage and nodded at Qi Danyi. "Are you going to come up? Do you want to admit defeat now?" Qi Danyi was stunned, but he knew that Primordial Invincible was right. Facing a mysterious Ascension cultivator, he had to admit defeat before the fight even started. Otherwise, he wouldn't even have the chance to do so. Taoist Du Nan was a living example. Well, he wasn't alive anymore, he was dead. "Senior Invincible, it's natural for me to admit defeat. But before that, can I ask you a few questions?" Qi Danyi said to Primordial Invincible, with a big smile on his face. It seemed like he would do whatever Primordial Invincible wanted to do. Chapter 56-25. Good. Senior Invincible indeed has the demeanor of a senior expert. You are indeed a role model for our generation. Qi Diyuan praised Invincible Primordial once again. Invincible frowned impatiently. "What is it? Hurry up and ask. Don't talk nonsense." Qi Danyi stopped his flattery and asked slowly, "Invincible Senior, I really want to know, how did I break through to the profound ascension stage? You also know that I've been stuck in the nascent soul stage for many years. If you can give me some pointers, I'll be very grateful." It wasn't just Qi Danyi who wanted to know. Everyone wanted to know. This was related to the interests of everyone in the Jianghu. Invincible didn't look at Lin Yi but shook his head. "It's just a coincidence. I won't tell you the process, so you can ask another question." It was related to Lin Yi. Without Lin Yi's permission, Invincible wouldn't tell anyone. There was no need to ask Lin Yi. Qi Danyi already knew that Invincible wouldn't tell him the truth, so he shook his head and said with regret, "What a pity. If I knew this, maybe I would have a chance to break through to the profound ascension stage." Invincible didn't say anything. In fact, he didn't think that Qi Danyi would be able to replicate it. After all, without Lin Yi's pill and lightning punishment, even if he told Qi Danyi the truth, he wouldn't be able to break through to the profound ascension stage. 2 more questions, Invincible urged. He didn't have the patience to listen to Qi Danyi's nagging. "The second question, I want to know, where did you break through to the profound ascension stage? If it's possible, please tell me, and let me go there to look for opportunities." If he could get the answer from Invincible's mouth, it would be a good harvest. But Invincible still didn't answer. That place was chosen by Lin Yi. Who knew if it had any special meaning for Lin Yi? "The third question," Invincible said coldly, obviously losing patience with this kind of question and answer. Qi Danyi giggled and said, "The third question is, Can Senior Undefeated tell me how the Thousand Blades sect is preparing to rebuild? In the future, we can talk about the recruitment of disciples. Primordial Invincible opened his mouth to refuse, but Qi quickly said, Senior Invincible, you didn't answer the first 2 questions. You should answer the last one, right? It's not like it's something difficult. There's no way you can't say it, right? Lin Yi frowned slightly. It was obvious that Qi had set a trap for Primordial Invincible to fall into. He really wanted to know the answers to the first 2 questions, but he knew that Primordial Invincible wouldn't say them easily, so it didn't matter whether he got the answers or not. In the end, he added the guilt of not answering the first 2 questions onto the third one, making Primordial Invincible feel bad not answering. As for the third question, it wasn't something that could be answered in a few sentences. Qi was clearly stalling for time. Was he waiting for a turning point? Or was he waiting for someone to appear? Qi plan was good. If it was someone else, they might have chosen to say a few more words, because they didn't answer the first 2 questions. Unfortunately, they didn't understand Primordial Invincible. Primordial Invincible only used 1 sentence to dismiss Qi explanation. It's a secret of the sect. No comment. Qi was depressed. What was so secret about this? Couldn't he just say a few words? I've asked the 3 questions. Can you admit defeat now? Primordial Invincible asked without changing his expression. He didn't feel embarrassed at all. Senior Invincible, shouldn't you at least answer one of the 3 questions? Qi was still unwilling to give up, but he couldn't help looking around as he spoke. This made Lin Yi even more certain that Qi was stalling for time. Cut the crap. Since you don't want to admit defeat, I'm going to make my move. Primordial Invincible said coldly, and raised his hand, ready to attack. Qi was anxious. He wanted to say something, but suddenly, his face lit up with joy. He shouted, It's here! Lin Yi's divine sense had already discovered that there was a flying saucer-like aircraft rapidly approaching Ruined Town. In the blink of an eye, it arrived above Ruined Town. The center. They had finally intervened in the primordial grand meeting. Lin Yi's heart sank. The center's sudden appearance at this time could only mean that things had developed in the worst direction. After the blue flood dragon's gene was extracted, it was used in a mature experiment in the shortest time possible. Therefore, the center's research had already succeeded. The only thing he didn't expect was that the Enlightening Heavens faction would actually make contact with the center. He hadn't noticed any signs of this before. Qi really hit it well. Primordial Invincible looked up at the sky. The flying saucer-like aircraft was hovering right above Ruined Town. When he looked up, he saw that there was an opening in the middle of the flying saucer. Many figures were jumping out of the opening. The reinforcements of the Enlightening Heavens faction? Do you think you can keep the 4 seats of the Enlightening Heavens faction just because you have more people? Primordial Invincible sneered. In fact, if you had just said that there would be reinforcements, this old man would have waited for you. Why bother talking so much nonsense? Primordial Invincible had just broken through nascent soul stage. He was full of confidence. As long as Qi said that he would wait for someone, Primordial Invincible would indeed wait for him. There was no need to play those boring little tricks. Qi face stiffened. He ignored Primordial Invincible and turned to the 2 people who landed first. Elder Shui, Elder Chen, I've been waiting for you for a long time. Finally you're here. Ha 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 ha. The main character will only appear at the last moment. Those small fries are only qualified to warm up the scene for this young master. The one laughing crazily was Lin Yi's nemesis, since he came to the ancient Jianghu, Shui Jianfeng. This cockroach-like man with an unkillable attribute had finally jumped out after a period of silence. As for the other person, Lin Yi also knew him. Xi and Ijia, and the others were not unfamiliar with him either. He was the original deputy head of Jadian faction, Chen Dongqing. Lin Yi almost couldn't recognize Chen Dongqing when he suddenly appeared. Other than the fact that Chen Dongqing was not a threat to Lin Yi, his entire temperament was completely different. If one didn't look closely, they wouldn't be sure that he was the previous deputy head of Jadian faction. Chapter 56-26. Chen Dongqing laughed and cooperated. What Lin Yi, what Green Cloud sect, they are just trash. How can they compare to our current Xiaoyao? If you like it, Master Shui, you can do whatever you want. Old Chen's words are not very pleasant to hear. Little Lin, don't mind it. Shui Jianfeng smiled and said to Lin Yi. Old Chen did not say that you are trash, he said that you are all trash, don't hear wrong. Lin Yi smiled faintly and said, 2 pieces of trash, did they just crawl out from the garbage dump? What a stinky smell. Shui Jianfeng and Chen Dongqing were already at the early stage of the profound ascension realm, and they did not hold back at all. They thought that they could suppress Lin Yi, but they did not expect that Lin Yi was completely fine, and even mocked them in return. These were people who had suffered a great loss in the hands of Lin Yi, and thinking of Lin Yi's unpredictability, they could not figure out Lin Yi's actual situation, and their arrogance suddenly dropped a lot. In fact, Lin Yi also had a headache at the moment, not because Shui Jianfeng and Chen Dongqing were at the early stage of the profound ascension realm, but because Shui Jianfeng and Chen Dongqing were at the early stage of the profound ascension realm. Lin Yi did not put them in his eyes. The key was that Shui Jianfeng and Chen Dongqing had become profound ascension realm. It meant that the sea beast Blue Jiao had been used for experiments, and he did not know if it was dead or not. If it was dead, then the sea beasts in the endless sea would riot again. As for whether Shui Jianfeng and Chen Dongqing really used the Blue Jiao to reach the early stage of the profound ascension realm, Lin Yi did not doubt it at all, because both of them had the aura of sea beasts, although it was not strong, but Lin Yi's feeling would not be wrong. Cheetah did not see that Shui Jianfeng and Chen Dongqing had some inexplicable fear in their hearts. He only saw the powerful aura of Shui Jianfeng and Chen Dongqing. It was not inferior to the primordial invincible, and even better. And from the flying saucer in the sky, there were still people continuously jumping down, although there were no profound ascension realm masters, but they were all nascent soul realm masters, a total of about 400 to 500. Who knew how the metal disc, that did not look very big, could hold so many people. Among them, there were at least 100 people who were as strong as Cheetah, 100 nascent soul realm masters. Such amazing strength was enough to sweep all the sects present. Ha 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 ha. Our Heaven Awakening faction also has an important decision to announce. However, we are not going to rely on other sections. Instead, we are going to merge with the center, and form a new center Heaven Awakening faction. Qi Dane laughed loudly as he announced. Seeing the profound ascending stage experts appearing one after another, he couldn't wait to become a profound ascending stage expert. Originally, he didn't dare to believe it, but the appearance of Shui Jianfeng and Chen Dongqing made him know that he had a high chance of successfully entering the profound ascending stage. As long as you join the center, you can become a profound ascending stage cultivator. Qi Dai could not resist such a temptation, and very few people could. Lin Yi glanced at the excited Qi Dai, and instantly understood a lot of things. Putting aside the delay just now, when he helped Qingquan Sect's Tribulation Transcendence immortal to delay time, he was actually helping himself to delay time. Apart from that, Lin Yi also suspected that Qi Dai was also involved in the capture of the oceanic beast royalty. Otherwise, Qi Dai wouldn't be so surprised by Shui Jianfeng's and Chen Dongqing's strength. Qi Dai, have you colluded with the center and helped them capture the royal sea beasts in the endless sea? Lin Yi suddenly asked. Qi Dai was slightly startled, and then smiled sinisterly. I didn't join the center long ago. I just contacted Master Shui recently. I have to thank you for all this. If it wasn't for the rise of the Jadian sect, I wouldn't have needed to prepare for a rainy day. If it wasn't for your threat, maybe I wouldn't have been able to get this opportunity to enter the profound ascension stage. Recently? You mean before the hunting of the oceanic beasts in the endless sea? Lin Yi glanced at Shui Jianfeng and Chen Dongqing, snorted and said, the center captured the oceanic beast royalty at such a coincidental time. Don't say that you were not the one behind it. The 2 nascent soul stage masters, from Qingquan sect and 5 Elements sect, were probably instigated by you to go, right? Qi Dai was secretly surprised. He didn't know how Lin Yi saw through all this, but as Lin Yi said, These things were all pushed by him behind the scenes. But these things had no connection at all on the surface, and there wouldn't be any clues left. How did Lin Yi know? The messy threads in Lin Yi's mind had gradually been straightened out. Originally, he really wouldn't connect all this, but the moment he saw Qi Danyi and Xue Jianfeng working together, he slowly pushed it back, and actually figured out a lot of things that he didn't think of before. Seeing that Qi Danyi didn't speak, Lin Yi continued. You secretly informed the center about the time we 10 little ones killed the oceanic beasts. With us diverting the attention of the oceanic beasts, the center can capture the oceanic beast royalty without attracting too much attention. At the same time, they can also put the blame of the oceanic beast royalty on our heads, diverting the trouble to us. Tribulation Master Jinren and Ma Zedong, the two allies who had already turned against each other, couldn't help but look at each other. The truth was, as Lin Yi said, they sent two nascent soul stage masters, and it was indeed instigated by Qi Danyi. Moreover, Qi Danyi clearly said that they couldn't touch Lin Yi, so they had to deal with the likes of Thousand Blades faction and Snow Sword faction. At the same time, they could cut off Lin Yi's wings, and at the same time vent their anger. Now that they thought about it, perhaps it wasn't that simple. Lin Yi smiled coldly, glanced at the audience and continued. Let me guess, you instigated the Qingkuan sect and the Five Elements sect. In fact, you also had the intention of weakening them, right? This is a good plan that kills 3 birds with 1 stone. No matter how things develop, you can not only help the center's action, but also weaken the strength of the Qingkuan sect and the Five Elements sect, and at the same time, attack all the 10 small sects and families. The capture of the oceanic beast royalty will definitely cause the oceanic beasts to riot. This is your plan. If there is no accident, except for the people of the center, everyone else will be buried in the endless sea. The audience was in an uproar. Lin Yi's words sounded a little unbelievable, but they were completely reasonable. If it weren't for the unexpected factor of Lin Yi, the result would be exactly the same as what Lin Yi said, that everyone who entered the endless sea would be buried in the oceanic beasts' riot. If things really developed in this way, it would be even easier for the Enlightened Heavens faction to occupy the ancient small Jianghu. As long as the center killed immortal Du Nan of the Qingkuan sect, there would basically be no obstacles. Chapter 56-27. He didn't even need the center to do anything, because one of the conditions for Qi Danyi to join the center and help them catch the blue dragon was that Xue Jianfeng promised to help him become a profound ascending stage master. It was a pity that Lin Yi messed up their entire plan, and the appearance of Yu Yi and Primordial Invincible was out of Qi University's expectations. Qi University had no choice but to announce the merger of Qi University's faction with the center, forming a nondescript Central Qi Tian faction. Nonsense. Qi Danyi's face was gloomy. Although Lin Yi said almost all the truth, Qi Danyi wouldn't admit it easily. After all, he still wanted to lead all the sects in the immemorial small Jianghu. Moreover, there were sea beasts in the endless sea involved. No one knew if the sea beasts would hear these things or not. Primordial Invincible, weren't you always in a hurry to challenge the center's Heaven Awakening faction? Why are you mute? After Qi Danyi scolded Lin Yi, he simply changed the topic and challenged the Primordial Invincible. The Primordial Invincible looked at Qi Danyi coldly and said, "This old man is waiting for your last words. Are you ready to die? We'll know who's coming to die soon." Qi Danyi sneered and turned to Xue Jianfeng and said, "Elder Xue, I'll have to trouble you with this reckless thing." "No problem. This young master wants to stretch my arms and legs. This old guy is a good sandbag." Xue Jianfeng returned to his previous arrogant style. As long as the opponent wasn't Lin Yi, he felt that he wouldn't lose. Without waiting for the great elder to announce the start of the battle, Xue Jianfeng flew towards the Primordial Invincible. He didn't even take out his long sword and directly punched. In terms of battle experience, Primordial Invincible, who was once the #1 nascent soul cultivator, was naturally much stronger than Xue Jianfeng. Normally, when facing an opponent who was slightly stronger than oneself, One should avoid the brunt of the attack and attack when the opponent was unprepared. However, this time Primordial Invincible did not have such a plan. Instead, he took a step forward and punched out. This was the pride of the Primordial Invincible. How could the former #1 Yuanying stage cultivator, who was now a master of the mysterious ascending stage, retreat and dodge in a confrontation with a junior? In the loud bang, the huge airwaves spread in all directions. Chun Dongqing and Qi Danyi had already retreated from the ring, and the aftermath of the fight between the two even made the protective inhibition formation on the edge of the ring to make a cracking sound, as if it was about to break. The audience below the stage all exclaimed and retreated. This was a battle between two profound ascending stage masters. Once they were affected, they would not even have the chance to resist. If the battle between Tribulation Immortal and Xianijia was said to be a battle of skills, then the battle between Xue Jianfeng and Primordial Invincible Warrior was a simple battle of strength without any fancy tricks. After a short stalemate, the clothes on Primordial Invincible Warrior's arm seemed to have fallen into a violent whirlpool, and under the rapid rotation, it instantly shattered into powder until it stopped completely above his shoulder. After a low muffled groan, he took 3 steps back, each step leaving a deep footprint on the hard rock. Xue Jianfeng, on the other hand, slightly shook his body after taking a step back. Then he rushed forward again. In the first round, it was obvious that the Primordial Invincible Warrior was at a disadvantage. Lin Yi's face was solemn. The Primordial Invincible Warrior was the strongest among the 3 mysterious ascending stage cultivators that he had promoted. After all, he was the one with the deepest accumulation and the strongest foundation. But even so, he was still no match for Xue Jianfeng. His ability was indeed unfathomable. Invincible, Xue Jianfeng has integrated the gene of the sea beast. His body is extremely strong. Don't fight him head-on. Lin Yi reminded him using Zhen Qi. But in this ever-changing battle, he didn't know if he could help the Primordial Invincible Warrior. After the Primordial Invincible Warrior stabilized his footsteps, Xue Jianfeng had already rushed over again. Lin Yi's voice transmission also came at the same time, so the Primordial Invincible Warrior no longer insisted on fighting head-on. Instead, he raised his hands, and hundreds of cold lights flew out from all over his body. It was the Thousand Blades Sect's ultimate skill, 1,000 blades flying together. This time, the Primordial Invincible Warrior chose 1,000 blades that were as thin as a cicada's wing. Under the blessing of the 1,000 blades flying together, the speed could reach an amazing level, and with its own sharpness, it could be said to be an invincible weapon. Xue Jianfeng laughed. Facing the gorgeous 1,000 blades flying together, he was not afraid at all. The two of them exchanged a punch, and then the Primordial Invincible Warrior took the initiative to use his weapon, which proved that Xue Jianfeng was stronger than the Primordial Invincible Warrior. Snow Dance Silver Snake. The temperature of the entire arena plummeted, and in an instant, it was like a drop of water turning into ice. Countless snowflakes appeared out of nowhere, covering every inch of the space, covering Xue Jianfeng's figure. Primordial Invincible Warrior was shocked. These snowflakes were formed from Xue Jianfeng's true qi, and to be able to burst out with such a shocking amount of true qi in an instant, he had to admit that Xue Jianfeng was stronger than him, be it in terms of physical strength or the strength of true qi. The blades of the 1,000 Blades flight fell into a difficult situation in the snowflakes. The blades, which were supposed to move with lightning-like speed, were quickly wrapped up by the layers of snowflakes. They all turned into clumsy and slow snowballs, unable to fly anymore. Break! Primordial Invincible Warrior roared, gathering all the true qi in his body, and controlling all the blades to collide with each other, shattering the layer of snowflakes and temporarily restoring the blade's mobility. But this situation could not continue. As long as there was no new method, the blades would immediately return to their original state. Amidst the snowflakes, Xue Jianfeng's indistinct and arrogant laughter could be heard. Ha ha ha, old man, is this all you've got? What a disappointment. You treated those scrap metals like treasures, and here I thought they were very powerful. Let me show you this young master's sword first. Yue, who was below the arena, could not help but curse in his heart. Xue Jianfeng, you big idiot. Do you still need to see your cheap tricks? Your forehead is already full of them, okay? In the past, when Yue was still Yu Taitsong, it was Xue Jianfeng who dragged him to the center, and later, Yu Taitsong's body was also taken away by Xue Jianfeng. Originally, he thought that with the help of Lin Yi, he had successfully advanced to the profound ascension stage, but he did not expect Xue Jianfeng to be even more powerful. Of course Yue was unhappy. Chapter 56-28. Amidst the flying snow, a long sword that seemed to be made of ice and snow fell from the sky without a sound. It was like an ordinary snowflake falling, but this snowflake was dangerous enough to take a person's life. Primordial Invincible couldn't find Xue Jianfeng, who was hiding in the snow, and his divine sense couldn't detect any attacks. He could only control the blades that were temporarily separated from the snow to fly around his body, forcing the snow away to create a small space. When the sword above his head entered the empty space, it immediately shed the snow disguise, revealing a piercing killing intent. Primordial Invincible suddenly raised his head, and all the blades gathered together, forming a simple and unadorned greatsword that pierced the sky. The tips of the two swords clashed together without any suspense. Xue Jianfeng's slender and long sword bent slightly, then bounced up. Xue Jianfeng's figure appeared in the snowflakes in the air, and he floated down to the ground. As for the huge sword formed from 1,000 blades, it was rapidly covered in frost from the tip of the sword, and cracks also appeared on the blade. Primordial Invincible's expression was solemn, but he didn't care about the cracks on the great sword. With a wave of his finger, the great sword in the sky scattered into the original 1,000 blades. It was originally scattered, so naturally there was no need to worry about the cracks. As the greatsword disintegrated, the frost covering it lost its effect. The blades turned in the air lightly, and the sparkling ice was flung away. Xue Jianfeng chuckled and said, "A little interesting. It's time for this young master to warm up." After saying that, Xue Jianfeng's body swayed, and once again disappeared in the sky full of snow. Primordial Invincible snorted, ignoring Xue Jianfeng, and instead closed his eyes. Since the eyes could lie to him, then he might as well not use them. The 1,000 thin blades let out a clear clanking sound, and exploded like a school of startled fish, flying in all directions. This time, the falling snowflakes couldn't trap the blades immediately, leaving clear scratches in the space where the snowflakes danced in the air. Found it! Primordial Invincible suddenly opened his eyes, and after a low shout, he put his hands together, and true chi surged. 1,000 blades in one, 10,000 streams returned to origin. The flying blades seemed to have teleported, completely defying the principle of their own inertia. They suddenly disappeared from their original trajectory, and gathered at the position that Primordial Invincible had pointed out, turning back into the ancient great sword. This huge sword carried the force of a thunderbolt as it ruthlessly chopped down, splitting Xue Jianfeng and the snowflakes into two. "Sorry, you found the wrong one." Xue Jianfeng's voice suddenly sounded in Primordial Invincible's ears, and the two halves of Xue Jianfeng's have scattered into a pile of snowflakes. Primordial Invincible's heart skipped a beat. As soon as Xue Jianfeng's voice rang out, he moved to the left. Primordial Invincible's rich battle experience saved his life. The moment Primordial Invincible moved, Xue Jianfeng's longsword stabbed into his back like a venomous snake. If Primordial Invincible hadn't moved, the sword would have pierced through his heart. Even if Lin Yi had attacked him personally, he wouldn't have been able to survive. It was that crucial movement that allowed Xue Jianfeng's long sword to stab into Primordial Invincible's right back, and out of his chest. Primordial Invincible's own strength pulled the sword out of his body, cutting through the bones on the right side. Fortunately, Primordial Invincible's arm was raised, or it would have been cut off by the sword. Primordial Invincible, who was severely injured, slammed his left palm on the ground, and used the force to change his direction, shooting out like an arrow, causing Xue Jianfeng's follow-up attack to miss. "Oh, you're not bad at running away." Xue Jianfeng looked at Primordial Invincible mockingly, as if he was a cat toying with a mouse. He shook his long sword, shaking off the blood on it. I admit defeat. Primordial Invincible's face was pale, and the wound on his chest was bleeding profusely. If he didn't admit defeat, he would bleed to death without Xue Jianfeng's help. After experiencing ups and downs, Primordial Invincible was no longer the arrogant and inflexible person he once was. If he knew that he couldn't do it, then he would never do it. He was the only one who could take on the responsibility of reviving the Thousand Blades sect. Ling Tianyu had potential, but he was still too weak. Primordial Invincible knew that he couldn't die. Such a straightforward surrender made Xue Jianfeng's approaching footsteps stop, but he immediately laughed and said, "Oh, my ears aren't feeling well, I can't hear anything. Let's kill you quickly to heal yourself." Xue Jianfeng's long sword pointed straight at Primordial Invincible's throat. In the blink of an eye, this early-stage mysterious ascendant expert would fall under Xue Jianfeng's sword. He said he admitted defeat. Just as Xue Jianfeng was about to stab Primordial Invincible, Ling Yi's voice suddenly appeared in Xue Jianfeng's ear, just like what Xue Jianfeng did to Primordial Invincible before. Xue Jianfeng, who didn't feel anything, was immediately scared out of his wits. His fear of Lin Yi had already penetrated deep into Xue Jianfeng's bones. Even if Xue Jianfeng was getting stronger and stronger, and thought that his strength was far beyond Lin Yi's, he couldn't erase this subconscious fear. "Ah!" Xue Jianfeng screamed. He couldn't care less about killing Primordial Invincible anymore. He directly turned around and waved his sword, wanting to attack Lin Yi first. Lin Yi sneered. Such a response was simply the worst in the current situation. Lin Yi could already speak in his ear. How could he be hit by Xue Jianfeng's attack? In terms of combat experience, Primordial Invincible was really more than 8 streets ahead of Xue Jianfeng. Unfortunately, his strength was suppressed, and he couldn't see through Xue Jianfeng's moves. That's why Primordial Invincible lost to Xue Jianfeng. There was no special move, nor did it require any fancy technique. Lin Yi just threw a simple slap. Xue Jianfeng just happened to turn around, as if he was rushing to use his face to attack Lin Yi's slap. Then, Xue Jianfeng spun and flew out, landing heavily on the other side of the arena. Lin Yi looked indifferently and waved his hand. "Your face hit my hand and it hurts. You're really a master of the profound ascension stage." Xue Jianfeng heard this sentence in a daze, and directly spat out a mouthful of blood. "You're the one who likes to hit people's hands with your face." But at this moment, Xue Jianfeng really didn't dare to say anything. He was originally very afraid of Lin Yi, and now he was even more frightened. This young master was already at the profound ascension stage. How could he be slapped away? This world was really too fake. Chapter 56-29. Lin Yi, don't mess around. Otherwise, you won't be able to bear the consequences. Chen Dongcheng, who was protected by a dozen or so Yuanying stage cultivators, was secretly relieved and immediately shouted at Lin Yi. Lin Yi ignored him and squatted beside Invincible Primeval. He held Invincible Primeval's wrist and took out a 5th-grade recover pill and put it into Invincible Primeval's mouth. He said to Invincible Primeval through True Qi, "Don't worry, cooperate with the healing." If it was just a 5th-grade recover pill, it would not be able to quickly stop the bleeding of Invincible Primeval's wound. But Lin Yi's True Qi could do it. In fact, it did not matter if he did not use the 5th-grade recover pill. Lin Yi was just using it to deceive people. Chen Dongqing saw that Lin Yi ignored him and seemed to feel a little embarrassed. He continued to say loudly, "Lin Yi, don't think that you are great just because you are powerful. Let me tell you, if you piss me off, I will give an order, and these Yuanying stage cultivators will immediately trample the small Jianghu in ancient times." Invincible Primeval's injury was quickly controlled, and the remaining 5th-grade recover pill could quickly heal it. So Lin Yi retracted his palm and stood up to look at Chen Dongcheng. He said with a face full of sarcasm, "So? Give an order." Chen Dongcheng choked for a moment. If he really wanted to give such an order, he would be a little afraid. After all, this was a last resort, It was just like the nuclear weapons of the secular world. It was okay to say that I don't like you, and I want to throw a nuclear warhead in your face. No one would really use it. If they really used it, it would be a big problem. Linny, don't be too arrogant. Do you think we can't deal with you? I'm not afraid to tell you, we have a secret weapon. Chen Dongqing coughed twice, and suddenly his eyes lit up. He seemed to have thought of something and shouted. Then he pressed something on his wrist, and a set of alloy armor suddenly appeared on his body. It was like the armor in sci-fi movies, and it looked very cool. Linny was surprised, but he was not surprised by the alloy armor. He had seen this thing in the mirage in the endless sea. Moreover, Kong Ming had shown it to Lin Yi on the heavenly island, so it was not strange. The key was, how did Chen Dongqing make this armor? This was something that Lin Yi was very interested in. Xue Jianfeng, who was rescued by a few perfected nascent soul realm cultivators, also had his eyes lit up. He burst into laughter and said, "That's right, we have a secret weapon. No matter how powerful you, Lin Yi, are, it's useless. See how this young master deals with you." After saying that, Xue Jianfeng also pressed a few times on his wrist, and the same alloy armor appeared out of thin air, enveloping Xue Jianfeng completely. Ha 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 ha. Lin Yi, weren't you supposed to be super strong? Come on. Let this young master see how powerful you are. Xue Jianfeng regained his arrogant laughter. With the defense and attack power of this alloy armor, Xue Jianfeng thought that Lin Yi would definitely not be able to break or resist it. If you don't come, then this young master will let you see what is called real power. Lin Yi raised his eyebrows, and a bolt of lightning struck down. Xue Jianfeng immediately stopped talking, and green smoke came out of his head. He fell straight down with his back facing the sky, making a loud bang. So powerful. What an eye-opener. Lin Yi said expressionlessly, and turned to look at Chen Dongqing. Chen Dongqing's whole body trembled, and he quickly put away the alloy armor. His eyes were full of reverence for Lin Yi. He could not understand how such a powerful equipment could be destroyed by Lin Yi so easily. Speaking of which, what was that lightning thing? If Lin Yi wasn't here, the appearance of this armor would be an undefeatable existence in the ancient small world. Even if a Foundation establishment stage person wore it, they would be able to fight against the undefeatable class of the ancient times. Not to mention Xue Jianfeng and Chen Dongqing, who were in the mystic ascension stage. However, on the heavenly stage island, after Han Jingjing's guidance, Lin Yi knew the weakness of this armor. It was made of alloy, and it was an electronic product. These two characteristics determined the fact that it could be easily destroyed by a bolt of lightning. Chen Dongqing sighed in his heart, and at the same time, he did not forget to put on a strong front, and shouted at Lin Yi. "Lin Yi, don't you dare move. If you dare to move, I will let them kill all the sects in the ancient small underworld. Don't think that I don't dare, I mean it this time." Lin Yi looked at the hundreds of powerful nascent soul stage cultivators, and could not help but frown. He thought that even if the center had this kind of technology, there would not be so many materials and people. He did not expect that he had completely underestimated the center. For Lin Yi, these nascent soul stage cultivators were nothing. They would not pose any threat to Lin Yi at all. But the people from other sects were not the same. If Lin Yi wanted to kill all the enemies at once, then he could only use a large area of effect martial arts, such as the Super Dan Fire Bomb, or the Thousand Thunder Explosion. The problem was that these moves were not easy to control. At that time, it was really hard to say which side would die more. Seeing Lin Yi frown, Chen Dongqing secretly rejoiced in his heart. He did not dare to force Lin Yi too much. He quickly took a step back and said, "Lin Yi, how about this? Today let's not interfere with each other. The undefeatable immemorial stage has been defeated. How about we end the challenge of the four great sects? Let's settle the grudges between us in the future, shall we?" Lin Yi was in a difficult position. He did not want to let these people from the center go, but he was also a little hesitant to take action. For a moment he was in a dilemma. At this moment, the ground shook slightly, and it became more and more obvious. Soon, in the distance outside the ruined town, countless birds rose up. It was obvious that they were alarmed by something. Sea beasts. Lin Yi swept his divine sense over, and an expression of surprise appeared on his face. The agreed time of 3 days was not up yet, and this was not the coast of the primordial mountains. He did not expect that at this critical moment, the sea beasts would actually appear here. In the blink of an eye, a large group of giant turtles, crabs, seals, sea lions, conches. Well, the conches were in the mouth of the sea serpent. They rushed into the ruined town. A sea crab carrying a coiled sea serpent came to the edge of the high platform and stopped directly not far from Lin Yi. The sea serpent ignored the big conch and nodded at Lin Yi. "Human, how's your investigation going? Our king can't wait any longer, so he asked me to bring my men here in advance. If you say that you haven't found anything, then don't blame me for flattening this place first." Lin Yi did not care about the threat in the sea serpent's words at all. This was all timely, the key to breaking the deadlock. Chapter 56:30. Chen Dongqing was dumbfounded. What was going on? The sea beasts had come to the land? Was he going to play with the world changing? The clown sea serpent didn't notice it before. After being reminded by Lin Yi, it was stunned for a moment before turning its head to sense Chen Dongqing's aura. It was just as Lin Yi said. This human had the aura of the blue flood dragon. Although it was very faint, it was definitely the aura of the royal sea beasts. There was no mistaking it. Temporarily suppressing the rage in its heart, the clown sea serpent turned around and thanked Lin Yi. "Thank you for your help. You really didn't lie to me. You really helped us. From today onwards, you are a friend of the sea beasts. My friend, can you tell me where our royal young man is?" The clown sea serpent remembered that the most important thing was to find the blue flood dragon, so it didn't immediately order an attack. Lin Yi smiled and said, "He's not here. Let's get rid of these guys who used the flesh and blood of your people to increase their strength first. Then, I'll bring you to find him." "All right." The clown sea serpent agreed readily. It originally wanted to kill Chen Dongqing and the others. Now that Lin Yi had spoken, it was even more of a favor. It would be weird if it didn't agree. After the clown sea serpent let out a high-pitched scream, the army of sea beasts instantly moved. Basically, 2 or 3 of them found a nascent soul stage cultivator in the center and released their respective attacks to their heart's content. The various sects in the immemorial underworld had long been confused by the continuous changes. Logically speaking, when the sea beasts were fighting against the humans, they should be helping the humans. However, those humans were originally trying to kill them, while the sea beasts were trying to save them. This was truly messy. In any case, no one could intervene in a battle of this level. They might as well hide far away to avoid being implicated by the innocent people. The battle started and ended quickly. Under the circumstances that the sea beasts were at the same level, they were stronger than humans. In addition, they had an absolute advantage in numbers. They almost swept the nascent soul stage cultivators in the center with ease. Chen Dongqing was scared out of his wits. Who exactly was Lin Yi? He could even control the sea beasts. How was he supposed to play? Seeing that the situation was not good, Chen Dongqing hurriedly carried Xue Jianfeng and jumped into the air amidst the chaos. He was sucked into the flying saucer and escaped. The clown sea serpent sneered. It had a deep impression of this AI Fuo. Of course, it would not watch it escape. While the flying saucer was lowering its altitude to support Chen Dongqing, dozens of sea beasts who were already prepared sprayed a type of acidic liquid into the air at the same time. The liquid hit the flying saucer's cabin and corroded a large hole at a speed visible to the naked eye. The flying saucer in the center was shot down. The flying saucer in the center was dragging a long black smoke, with sparks sparkling around the hole. It quickly fell towards the endless sea. It was unknown whether Xue Jianfeng and Chen Dongqing would die like this. The clown sea serpent turned around and instructed, "Go and inform those kids on standby in the sea. If they see the falling metal disc, don't let those guys go." Lin Yi wanted to say that those 2 guys were masters of the profound ascension stage. If it was just some nascent soul stage and gold core stage sea beasts, they probably wouldn't be able to stop them. Unless the 2 of them were seriously injured when the flying saucer was damaged, then it would be a different story. However, The sea beasts who received the order did not look back. Lin Yi did not say anything in the end. If they wanted to deal with Chen Dongcheng, only Lin Yi would have a chance. Even Yui did not have much confidence. However, Lin Yi did not have time to care about those two guys. If they could escape, they would meet again when they went back to Luo Mountain. There was no need to be in a hurry. Qi Daniai's face was as white as ash. It was a good plan, and victory was in their grasp, but this shit-stirrer Lin Yi messed it up. For to 500 Yuanying masters, how powerful were they? However, they were directly crushed by the sea beasts brought by Lin Yi. No matter how clever Qi Daniai was, he would never have thought that this would happen. Lin Yi glanced at Qi Daniai, then looked at Primordial Invincible. Just now, Lin Yi's Qi had almost healed Primordial Invincible. Now he was almost fully recovered. Just now in the first round, the Thousand Blades sect lost. However, these 4 challenges are best of 3, so the second round can also start. The Thousand Blades sect challenged the Heaven Awakening sect. The Thousand Blades sect sent out Primordial Invincible, who is from the Heaven Awakening sect. Lin Yi looked at Qi Daniai and asked with a smile. Qi Daniai's eyes darkened. How could they still fight? The 2 profound ascension stage masters in the center were defeated by you. Now you're asking me who is going to fight Primordial Invincible? Who would be stupid enough to go and die? Lin Yi turned his head to Primordial Invincible and said, Invincible, your injuries are not healed yet. Don't hold back during the battle. The best way is to end the battle quickly, understand? Understood, I won't hold back. Primordial Invincible nodded solemnly and agreed. After that, he glared at Qi Daniai with murderous eyes. Qi Daniai's heart was extremely sullen. Is it really okay for you to directly say that you want to kill someone? Can't you be more reserved? Primordial Invincible twisted his neck and shoulders, and waved his hand. The thin blades that were scattered on the ground returned to his side. He looked at Qi Daniai and said, Are you going to fight in the second round? If you are, then hurry up. Do I still need to ask a question? Can I ask a question? Qi Daniai asked with a sad face. The problem was that it was useless to ask questions now. No matter how much time was wasted, no one would come to save him. Yes. Primordial Invincible nodded and said, Okay, I'm done. Let's start the battle. Qi Daniai was stunned for a moment before he realized what was going on. Can I ask questions? This was also a question. Seeing Primordial Invincible's 1,000 blades in the air, Qi Daniai's eyes rolled back and he fainted. Lin Yi coughed twice and asked the Great Elder of Ruins Town, who was standing dumbfounded on the side. Shouldn't you say something in this situation? The Great Elder of Ruins Town was already confused by the series of changes before. Now that Lin Yi asked him, he subconsciously agreed. He shook his head for a while and finally recovered. Chapter 56:31. Seeing that Qi Daniai didn't seem to have any intention of waking up, the Great Elder of the Ruins Town continued. The third round of the Thousand Blades faction's 4 major challenges begins now. Both parties come on stage. The people of the Awakening Heaven faction looked at each other, not knowing what to do. Qi Daniai was the backbone of the Awakening Heaven faction. If he fainted, whoever went up would die. The problem now was not who would go up to fight Primordial Invincible, but whether or not they should get Qi Daniai off the stage first. Otherwise, fainting on stage was not a solution. However, the Great Elder of the Ruins Town obviously didn't plan to give the Awakening Heaven faction this chance. After the last sentence, he only paused for a moment before continuing. Both parties have chosen their candidates. The third round of the 4 major challenges begins now. The people of the Awakening Heaven faction were dumbfounded. What was going on? Why was he already on stage? He hadn't even left the stage yet. However, before the people of the Awakening Heavens faction could protest, the Great Elder of Ruins Town glanced at Qi Daniai again, then announced expressionlessly, Because the candidate of the Awakening Heavens faction has fainted on the arena, the Thousand Blades faction has won. The Thousand Blades faction versus the Awakening Heaven faction of the Awakening Heaven faction of the 4 major challenges. The Thousand Blades faction won 2 out of 3 rounds and became one of the new 4 major factions. Congratulations everyone. This time, even Primordial Invincible was a little dumbfounded. He had just regained control of his weapon and said something to provoke Chi Danii. And he won just like that? And it was 2 wins in a row. Was the Qingquan sect going to rely on the Thousand Blades faction? Lin Yi rubbed his forehead. This great elder of the ruins town was also a talent. It was a waste that he didn't become a stand-up comedian. There was obviously no one else who could do this in Black Whistle. It was more reasonable to directly announce that the Thousand Blades faction had become one of the 4 major factions. Fortunately, the fact that Chi Danii had colluded with the Awakening Heaven faction had already offended all the sections. As for the great elder of the ruins town's actions, they unanimously praised him. In any case, if Primordial Invincible really fought, he would definitely be able to kill Chi Danii in a second. My friend, can you take us to find our young royal family member now? The clown sea serpent was not interested in human affairs at all, so he asked Lin Yi about the blue flood dragon's whereabouts. Lin Yi couldn't be bothered with the matters of the 4 great challenges anymore. Since the dust had already settled, it was time to take some time to deal with the central problem. Since the clown sea serpent asked, Lin Yi went straight to the point and said, "The members of your royal family are now in the central laboratory in K Luo Mountain. They have become the gene supply source for the central to improve the strength of their subordinates. However, it will be more troublesome for you to go there. Why don't you wait here, and I'll go rescue your royal family members and hand them over to you." "Where is K Luo Mountain? Is it very far?" the clown sea serpent asked doubtfully. In fact, compared to the endless sea, the land in the immemorial underworld only occupied a very small part. In terms of distance, it really couldn't compare to the clown sea serpent and the others. Lin Yi smiled and said, "It's not far, but if I use a flying spirit beast to travel, it will take me a day to go back and forth. You guys can't use flying spirit beasts either. If you go by land, I'm afraid the blue flood dragon won't be able to wait for you guys to rescue him." The clown sea serpent felt that it made sense, but he was a little worried about Lin Yi going alone, so he asked worriedly, "Are you going alone? Can you handle it?" If it was the Lin Yi in the endless sea, it would indeed be impossible. That was why Lin Yi had asked the clown sea serpent to gather an army of sea beasts. However, there was no need for that now. After comprehending the method of using his divine sense to activate his martial skills, Lin Yi's strength was enough to run amok in the immemorial underworld. "Don't worry, you just stay here and help me protect my friends in case those guys attack them again. I'll be responsible for bringing the members of your royal family back. Is that a deal?" Lin Yi's confident look made the clown sea serpent involuntarily believe him. Moreover, with the 400 to 500 nascent soul stage experts that had just been eliminated, the strength of the center should have been greatly affected. The army of sea beasts really didn't need to follow Lin Yi anymore. After convincing the clown sea serpent, Lin Yi called Invincible Primordial, Exanigia, and Shangguan Qingyan over, and instructed them to deal with the aftermath of the immemorial convention. Then, Lin Yi summoned a flying spirit beast and soared into the sky with Yu, flying towards K Luo Mountain. After half a day, K Luo Mountain was already in sight. Yu controlled the flying spirit beast to fly to Lin Yi's side and said, "Master, the center's base is about to arrive. They have a very magical tool that can monitor the situation outside from inside the base, especially in the sky. Should we land first and then sneak over?" Lin Yi was startled, but then he understood that Yu was talking about the monitoring device in the secular world. This kind of thing that was already common in the secular world had indeed become a mysterious and powerful tool in the immemorial underworld. Since the center could even make flying saucers and alloy armors, it was very normal for them to install some monitoring devices. There was nothing strange about it. No need, we'll directly attack. Lin Yi smiled faintly, his expression was full of strong confidence. Xue Jianfeng and Chen Dongcheng, 2 profound ascending stage cultivators, were nothing to Lin Yi, not to mention that these 2 might not be able to return alive. In addition to the 400 to 500 nascent soul stage cultivators killed by the sea beasts, Lin Yi did not think that the center's base would have much resistance. Yui obviously thought of this as well, thinking that this was an opportunity to perform well. If he could get Lin Yi to help him level up a few more times, he might be able to get rid of Lin Yi's control soon. Master, then let's see Yu Yi's performance. Let Yui open the door to victory for Master first. Yui patted his chest with an indomitable attitude, then commanded the flying spirit beast to accelerate forward, pulling away from Lin Yi. Lin Yi did not care about him. Anyway, with Yu Yi's strength in the early stage of profound ascending stage, it would not be so easy for the center to threaten him. After a while, Yui, who was flying in front, controlled the flying spirit beast to dive down, and at the same time, he released all the martial techniques that he had prepared. Looking from afar, the ice-attributed martial technique was sparkling and translucent. It had a gorgeous beauty to it. However, Yu Yi's actions had already been discovered by the central base. So when Yui attacked, the central base's defense system had already been activated. After a few consecutive laser beams shattered Yu Yi's attack, they continued to chase after him. Fortunately, Yu Yi's flying spirit beast was also quite agile. After dodging it easily, it continued to rush down. Chapter 56-32. Thinking of this, Yui suddenly felt that he was stupid again. Why did he rush to the front? He should have let Lin Yi be the shield. As for what he thought before, well, that wasn't important anymore. Yui, who was about to rush to the ground, wanted to turn around and find Lin Yi to let Lin Yi have a taste of the center's laser weapons. However, 5 people in alloy armor suddenly flew out from the base. Laser weapons needed to be charged and couldn't be fired continuously. Therefore, in this gap, soldiers were needed to fill in the gaps in the defense. These 5 people in alloy armor were the guards arranged by the center. When Yui saw this, he had an excuse to escape. He hurriedly pulled the flying spirit beast up and desperately flew towards Lin Yi. Although he hadn't officially tried it, Yui had stayed in the center for a while. He knew that he was definitely not a match for this kind of alloy armor. Even if he could deal with it, he should let Lin Yi block the bullets. Master, the attack power below is too strong, let's run. Yui pretended to be panicking and led the 5 people in alloy armor over. With the propulsion of the flying device, the speed of the 5 people in alloy armor wasn't slower than the flying spirit beast. Moreover, while chasing from behind, the 5 people opened the laser guns on their arms and aimed at Yui and his flying spirit beast. Lin Yi didn't care about Yu Yi's little thoughts. These 5 people in alloy armor were indeed too strong for Yui. It was normal for him to run if he couldn't beat them. He wasn't stupid. Without waiting for the 5 people to fire their laser guns, Lin Yi directly used his martial arts skill and attracted 5 lightning bolts. At the same time, the 5 alloy armors that were emitting black smoke and sparks suddenly lost their power and fell from the sky. After 5 loud bangs, they disappeared into the forest below. The dumbfounded Yui shouted in his heart, "Fuck. How could I forget that little bastard Lin Yi is the easiest to deal with these stupid iron skins. I miscalculated. I should perform well first, and then let little bastard Lin Yi increase my strength for me." Yui, who instantly changed his mind again, changed his direction, and rushed towards the entrance of the base. As he flew, he did not forget to shout, "Master is mighty. These small fries are really not enough. Master, let's see Yu Yi's performance next." Let Yui open the door to victory for Master. Before he finished speaking, the laser weapon that had finished charging launched a second round of attacks. Yui immediately burst into tears. "You guys are all shills that little bastard Lin Yi found, right? Why can't you let me follow the script properly for once?" After dodging the second wave of attacks, Lin Yi flew to Yu Yi's side. "Good job," he said faintly. 1,000 thunderbolts explosion. Countless thunderbolts raged down. Except for Yui, who was next to Lin Yi, the other places were almost covered with thunderbolts. The laser weapon device that had exposed its position was completely turned into a pile of scrap metal under the dense thunderbolts. The entrance of the base also slowly opened because of the failure of the electronic device. The door to victory is really open. Let's go. Lin Yi said in a flat tone with a faint smile on the corner of his mouth. He was the first to jump off the flying spirit beast and enter the central base. Yui smiled twice and thought to himself, this is all my credit. Otherwise, how could you find their position? Seeing that Lin Yi's figure had disappeared into the entrance, Yui felt that it was impossible to trap Lin Yi, so it was better to perform well and have a better future. So he also hurriedly jumped off the flying spirit beast and rushed in behind Lin Yi. After entering the central base, Lin Yi's divine sense spread out and covered all the space of the base in an instant. It was much more effective than any surveillance. To be honest, Lin Yi was still very surprised by the means of the center. Not to mention anything else. Just this base full of sci-fi atmosphere could be built and put into use in a short period of time. It was already very amazing. Not to mention that they actually made continuous breakthroughs in research. Even the profound ascension stage could be promoted. In the future, it would definitely be a big problem for Lin Yi. After sweeping the entire base with divine sense, Lin Yi's expression changed. He found that in a control room, Dafeng had killed several people in a row and was now turning off some switches. It turns out that Dafeng is also here. No wonder there seems to be no defensive measures after coming in. It should be shut down by Dafeng. Lin Yi smiled and muttered. His figure flashed and quickly came to the room where Dafeng was. Boss Lin Yi, long time no see. Dafeng turned around and said with a little excitement. Dafeng, it's been hard on you these days. Lin Yi smiled warmly and patted Dafeng's shoulder. He nodded and said, not bad. You're already foundation establishment perfection. It seems like you're doing well here. Dafeng laughed a few times and said, it's all right. Currently, the medicine that the center is researching can only be upgraded to foundation establishment perfection without any side effects. However, people like me are just for show. I don't have much combat power. Boss Lin Yi, the people around you are more powerful. Lin Yi thought that Wu Chentian, Song Lingshan, and the others were probably not as strong as him. In order to let them have a solid foundation, Lin Yi did not casually upgrade them. Instead, he let them train on their own. Dafeng, did you see me here so you helped me? Lin Yi asked casually. His divine sense didn't detect any more people in the base. As expected, Xue Jianfeng and Chen Dongqing took away most of the combat power. Dafeng smiled and nodded. That's right. It's because there are no more people in the base that I had this opportunity. Otherwise, I wouldn't have dared to move around. You're not in charge of this base, are you? Lin Yi asked curiously. The location of the Blue Dragon was confirmed. It wasn't in any danger at the moment, so Lin Yi was in no hurry to go. He continued to chat with Dafeng. Of course not. To put it bluntly, I'm just the head of security. Dafeng had nothing to hide. He pointed at the complicated control panel and said, otherwise, I wouldn't be able to control these devices. The person in charge here is Glasses, one of the higher-ups in the center. He received the signal that Xue Jianfeng's flying saucer had crashed, so he went to rescue them. That's how I got the opportunity. Chapter 56-33. In the beginning, Lin Yi used some means to control Dafeng. To be honest, at that time, Dafeng was not willing to be controlled by Lin Yi. Later, because of the benefits, Dafeng continued to follow Lin Yi. Now Dafeng was already convinced by Lin Yi and was willing to work for Lin Yi. Only Dafeng himself knew the process of this. Lin Yi looked at the corpses on the ground and casually shot out a few alchemic fires to completely destroy the corpses. Then he said to Dafeng, I killed these people. If you can, leave the base temporarily and find an excuse to explain later, so as not to be suspected by the center. Boss Lin Yi, don't worry. I know what to do. Dafeng replied with a smile. He was a little touched in his heart. From these small details, it could be seen that Lin Yi really cared about Dafeng. It was right to follow such a boss. Yui stuck his head out of the door and looked around. He immediately shrank back. Dafeng asked in a low voice, Boss Lin Yi, is the guy you brought reliable? If it was someone else, Dafeng might not have asked. What was there to doubt about the people who followed Lin Yi? However, Yu Yi's sneaky appearance made Dafeng feel that he was not reliable. This question also made Lin Yi a little puzzled. Yu Yi's life and death were controlled by Lin Yi. He should be an absolutely reliable person. But Lin Yi felt that Yu Yi's brain circuit was a little different. It was possible that his nerves were connected wrongly. Hey kid, what are you talking about? Are you trying to sow discord between me and Master? You idiot Dafeng, don't think that I can't recognize you just because I changed my appearance. Yui stuck his head out of the door and pretended to be fierce. What the hell? Dafeng was inexplicable. Who knows you? Have I seen you before? Lin Yi rubbed his forehead and said, Dafeng, you don't have to care about him. This fellow is still very reliable. Yui immediately had a complacent look on his face. He glanced at Dafeng provocatively, but in his heart he thought, of course I'm reliable. Once I escape from your control, I'll definitely kill you. That's right. How's the condition of that blue flood dragon? In Lin Yi's spiritual sense, the blue flood dragon's body was filled with all sorts of wires and test tubes. There were so many of them that he could not count them all at once. It was enough to drive someone with trypophobia crazy. Hence, to be safe, he had to ask Dafeng. Dafeng frowned slightly and said, Boss Lin Yi, I'm not too sure about this, but I heard someone say that this blue flood dragon's strength was forcibly raised to the profound ascending stage. Because it was an experimental drug, the situation is very unstable. Now it's relying on instruments and nutrient drinks to survive. If the wires and test tubes are removed, it's very likely that it will die immediately. We can't remove it. Lin Yi looked like he had a headache. This was quite troublesome. If he brought back a dead blue flood dragon, the sea beasts might riot immediately. Yui simply walked in and said indifferently, Master, since he said that we can't remove it, then let's directly take it back. As long as the blue flood dragon doesn't die when we return it to the sea beasts, it's none of our business. Needless to say, Yui was a shameless guy. This shameless idea was very meaningful. After Lin Yi thought about it, he nodded and said, That's the only way. With Lin Yi's universal qi, he could actually try to save the blue flood dragon. However, Lin Yi wasn't sure if he could treat the sea beasts. Moreover, the sea beasts had been modified by the center. It was hard to say if it would be effective. Therefore, before he could be sure that the blue flood dragon could be saved, Lin Yi didn't dare to act rashly. If he killed the blue flood dragon, then the ancient underworld would be finished. There's no time to lose. Yui, come with me immediately. Dafeng, quickly follow your plan and arrange things to get rid of suspicion. I guess the glasses doctor will be back soon. Lin Yi didn't want to face the glasses doctor at this time. First, it was because of the blue flood dragon. Second, it was because the other party had a flying saucer. If the glasses doctor noticed that Lin Yi was in the base, he would directly fire a few laser cannons at high altitude or remotely detonate the base. Then it would be a big problem. Dafeng originally wanted to go and help, but Yui chased him away with a look of disdain. In Yu Yi's words, you're just a foundation establishment perfection weakling. Don't be a hindrance, and you'll be a great help. Lin Yi and Yui were extremely fast. In just a few breaths, they arrived at the laboratory, where the blue flood dragon was imprisoned. They saw a huge cylindrical glass jar filled with a light green liquid. A blue flood dragon floated inside, and its body was full of various wires and test tubes. Lin Yi observed for a while. If they wanted to take this cylindrical glass jar away, the instruments on the side couldn't be left behind. This seemed to be a bit big. Moreover, he didn't know if the flying spirit beast could bear this weight. Yui approached the glass jar and stared at the blue flood dragon inside. Then he knocked on the glass with his finger and said, Hey, you're not dead yet, right? We're here to save you. If you're not dead, then squeak. Otherwise, we'll just collect your corpse. The blue flood dragon in the glass jar suddenly opened its eyes and looked at Yui angrily. Obviously, it was very unhappy with Yu Yi's words. Lin Yi thought to himself, as expected of the royal family, this temper is definitely not small. After pushing Yui away, Lin Yi smiled faintly and said, I was entrusted by the clown sea serpent to rescue you. However, it's not easy to deal with you in your current state. What do you think of your own condition? The blue flood dragon struggled and twisted its body a few times. It opened its mouth and said in the water, "I don't know either. It seems like there's a very powerful force in my body, but I feel very weak. Human, if you can save me, I Languza, will be your brother." Yui curled his lips and said softly, "Is it that rare? Having a sea beast as a brother wasn't necessarily something to be proud of. However, it's quite impressive to speak in the water." Lin turned his head and glared at Yui. Only then did Yui shut his mouth resentfully. Of course, he was cursing Lin in his heart. "Languza, I'm not sure if you can leave this glass jar now, so I can only move it back with the things here. Don't move around. We'll figure out how to save you when we get back." Lin tried his best to speak in a soothing tone. As expected, it calmed Languza's emotions very well. Chapter 56-34. As for Yui, Languza directly ignored him. As a sea beast, he was actually very perceptive and knew who was in charge here. Lin nodded, and with a flip of his hands, he condensed 2 super pill fire bombs. This time, Lin added his own spiritual sense into them, and the ratio was relatively high, which made it easier to control the direction of the explosion. Not waiting for Yui and Languza to react, Lin had already thrown out the super pill fire bombs. The 2 bombs pulled away from each other, slanted upwards and exploded outwards. With a loud bang, a huge hole ran through the entire superstructure of the base, but the broken parts didn't fall down. It was completely torn apart by the explosion. Yui was a little dumbfounded. Lin Yi's strength really refreshed his impression of him again and again. Between killing Lin Yi immediately and improving his strength to kill Lin Yi, Yui once again firmly chose the latter. Of course, this determination would only last until the next opportunity to immediately kill Lin Yi appeared. Lin Yi turned around and made a hole in the ground with the glass jar as the center, then directly lifted this piece of ground with his true chi. After testing it, he felt that the weight was okay, so he turned to Yui and helped him put the instruments on it. Yui hurriedly moved the surrounding connected instruments to this piece of ground and scattered them so that Lin Yi could maintain his balance. However, in his heart, he was thinking that Lin Yi was a little bastard. He didn't know whether he came to save the sea beast or to destroy other people's houses. Lin Yi waited for Yui to pack up, then transformed into his soul state. But with both hands holding the entire piece of ground, he flew out of the hole. Yui couldn't fly, so he could only directly jump on it, and then call the 2 flying spirit beasts. The 2 of them landed on their own flying spiritual beasts, and quickly flew towards Ruined Town. As Lin Yi was still in his soul form, he carried the entire weight of the ground on his body. As a result, the flying spiritual beast beneath him did not carry much weight, and did not slow down at all. It wasn't that Lin Yi couldn't fly, but if he had to carry such a large piece of ground, it would be a bit strenuous for him to use his primordial spirit to fly. Half a day later, the 2 of them returned to Ruined Town. The various sects had already returned to their respective residences in an inn, and only the sea beasts led by the clown sea serpent were gathered together. "Prince Languza, are you all right?" When the clown sea serpent saw Languza in the glass jar, he immediately went forward and asked anxiously. Languza opened his eyes and nodded. "So it's Snake Shichiro. I heard that you asked this human to save me? Thank you so much." Snake Shichiro quickly smiled and said, "It's all part of my duty. Besides, we've been friends since we were young. I can't just watch you suffer. Let's skip the pleasantries. Hurry up and think of a way to get me out of this damn jar." Languza wiggled his body. It was obvious that he was annoyed by this glass jar. Snake Shichiro turned to look at Lin Yi and said, "Lin brothers, can't you get rid of these things?" Lin Yi smiled bitterly and said, "You don't know Languza's situation. That's why you're asking. What's going on?" Snake Shichiro was stunned and asked in confusion. Lin Yi pointed at Languza and said, "Can't you feel Languza's aura? He's already at the early stage of mysterious ascension." Snake Shichiro felt it for a moment, and then said with some envy, "He's really at the early stage of mysterious ascension. It's only been 2 days, and he has soared from the early stage of nascent soul to the early stage of mysterious ascension. This guy got a blessing in disguise." "It's hard to say whether it's a blessing or a curse," Lenny said lightly. In order to use Languza's genes to make the fusion potion, the people in the center first used an unstable test potion to raise his strength to the early stage of mysterious ascension, and then extracted Languza's genes to use. If it was only the early stage of nascent soul Languza, it would not be able to make a potion to raise his strength to the early stage of mysterious ascension. Yes, that's what happened. Snake Shichiro nodded quickly, with an expression of understanding. Yui tilted his head and asked in confusion, "You can understand?" Snake Shichiro shook his head decisively and said, "I don't understand." "If you don't understand, why are you pretending to understand? You made me think that I'm so stupid that I'm not even comparable to a sea snake, and I almost started to doubt my life. What the hell?" Lenny was too lazy to pay attention to the indignant Yui, and continued, "It doesn't matter if you don't understand. Simply put, the center created a potion that can raise one to the mysterious ascension stage, but humans will die if they use it. So they captured Languza and used his strong physique of the Sea Beast King to fuse this potion. Although it was not completely successful, they can already extract materials from Languza's body to make a more stable, more perfect, and more powerful potion, helping the human practitioners in the center to break through the mysterious ascension stage." This conclusion was made by Lenny based on some of Dafeng's words and his own inference. Although it could not be proved, Lenny believed that it should be very close to the truth. Shichilong came to a sudden realization and said, "I understand now that you put it this way. That's why Languza's condition is very unstable right now. Although that medicine increased his strength, it also destroyed Languza's body at the same time. The things on his body were used to preserve his life? Yes, you are very smart. If we remove those things, Languza is likely to die immediately. What do you think we should do?" Lenny brought Languza back. "Is to leave this problem for Snake Shichiro to solve." Snake Shichiro immediately shook his head and said, "Then don't remove it. If Languza dies, I will be buried with him." "Snake Shichiro, are you still my brother?" Languza shouted, obviously very dissatisfied with Snake Shichiro's words. Snake Shichiro turned his head and advised patiently, "Languza, don't be agitated. I am also doing this for your own good. Look, when you are agitated you are bleeding." "Bleeding? Damn, why are you bleeding?" Lenny was also shocked, quickly turned his head to look. Sure enough, the number of things that were inserted into Languza's body, the number of places that were inserted into the body began to bleed. If it was only 1 or 2 places, probably Snake Shichiro would not care. But such a large area of bleeding at the same time. The whole glass tank began to change color. The situation is definitely not optimistic. "Languza, has this situation happened before?" Lenny was shocked but not panicked, still maintained enough calm, and immediately grasped the key problem. "No, this situation has never happened before." Languza's voice was a little panicked. After all, among the sea beasts, he is only a teenager. Chapter 56-35. What should I do? What should I do? Snake Shichiro was in a panic. He was no longer as calm as he was when he first met Lenny. After all, Languza had a good relationship with him, and he was also a member of the royal family. He could not be blamed for panicking out of concern. Lenny knew that he could not count on Snake Shichiro to make a decision now. If he allowed Languza to continue bleeding, this guy would probably die here. Although Lenny had saved Languza according to the agreement, and even if Languza died now, there was nothing he could do. But after all, he was in front of Lenny. If he did not take any measures, Lenny would feel guilty. "Get out of the way!" Lenny shouted and pushed Snake Shichiro and Yui aside. Then he punched the glass jar. To Lin Yi's surprise, this punch, which contained a lot of genuine qi, did not shake the glass jar at all. It was obvious that the material was definitely not ordinary glass. With no time to think, Linny punched again. This time, his fist was wrapped in a layer of 5 elements murderous chi. Finally, the glass jar was successfully broken. The liquid inside rushed out in an instant, tearing the broken hole. Languza also rushed out with the water. Linny did not care about his wet clothes. He directly reached out to support Languza. He turned his hand and took out some healing elixirs. He crushed them for external application and smeared them on Languza's body. It was easier to take them for internal application. He just asked Languza to open his mouth and throw them in. Because he was not sure if it was effective, Linny did not dare to pull out all the things at once. He just smeared healing elixirs on the fallen parts when he rushed out. Unfortunately, the effect was minimal. Although almost all of Lin Yi's elixirs were of the best quality. After the elixirs took effect, the wounds just showed signs of healing. But they split again, as if there was an invisible force stopping the elixirs. Why is this happening? Why can't your pills even stop the bleeding? Snake Shichiro had been watching with hope as Lin Yi healed Languza. But now he was once again thrown into confusion. Languza twitched violently a few times, then suddenly burst into tears. After all, he was only a teenager. When he felt that death was about to befall him, he could no longer endure the heart-wrenching fear. Snake Shichiro, I don't want to die. Save me. Languza cried loudly, but it was obvious that there was an unconcealable weakness in his voice. Snake Shichiro had a bitter look on his face. He thought to himself, you don't want to die, but I don't want to die either. He had clearly saved her, but she had died right in front of him. Being buried with her was not something that could be casually said. Lin brothers, do you have any ideas? Hurry up and save him. Snake Shichiro was really anxious. Originally, saving Languza was definitely a great credit. It was not a big deal if he could not save him, and it would not affect him, Snake Shichiro. However, Languza had clearly been saved, but he died in front of Snake Shichiro in the end. This matter was a little unclear. There was no such thing as harmony among the oceanic beasts. The strong preyed on the weak, and looting a burning house was the fundamental rule. Although they had a good relationship, and although they were somewhat related, no one would believe it. Linny frowned slightly. Languza's current situation was not very good. Elixirs were no longer of any use, and the only chance was Lin Yi's all-purpose vital energy. I can give it a try, but I can't guarantee the result. Lin Yi chose to help in the end. After all, Languza gave Lin Yi a good feeling, and Snake Shichiro could be considered to have helped Lin Yi a lot before. Snake Shichiro was immediately overjoyed. When Lin Yi said that he could give it a try, he was like a drowning man who had grabbed onto his last life-saving straw. He quickly nodded and said, Lin brothers, go ahead and try. No matter the result, I, Snake Shichiro, will remember the benefits you've given me, Lin brothers. When Languza heard that Lin Yi might have a way, he stopped crying and looked nervously at Lin Yi, not hiding the hope in his eyes. Lin Yi estimated that Languza would not be able to hold on for long, so he no longer hesitated and said to Snake Shichiro, Then I will bring Languza to a quiet room to heal him. Snake Shichiro, you and Yui will guard me outside. Snake Shichiro wanted to say that he could heal Languza here, and no one would dare to disturb him. However, he resisted in the end. After all hope was now on Lin Yi, and Snake Shichiro did not dare to make Lin Yi unhappy. Lin brothers, you'll have to work hard. Hurry up and find a quiet room. Snake Shichiro was also tactful. He immediately summoned a huge crab and asked it to carry Languza on its back. Then, it followed behind Lin Yi to find a quiet room. There were many houses in ruined town, so there was no need to look for one. There were empty rooms on the side. Lin Yi just did not want others to see him healing Languza, so there was nothing to be picky about. After Lin Yi brought Languza into the empty room, Yui and Snake Shichiro guarded on both sides like two door gods. Whether it was sea beasts or humans, they were all driven far away. They even set up a layer of divine sense defense to block possible divine sense spying. The blood flow of Languza's wounds slowed down a little, but it was not because his injury was getting better. On the contrary, this was the inevitable result of Languza's body losing too much blood. When the blood completely stopped flowing, it would be the time when Languza was completely finished. Lin Yi pressed his hand on Languza's thick body with a solemn expression, continuously transferring the all-purpose vital energy to him. However, the all-purpose vital energy, which had always been successful, could not heal Languza's wound this time. What is this thing? Why is it so stubbornly obstructing the recovery of the wound? Lin Yi frowned slightly. The all-purpose vital energy was effective, but there was a strange force hovering around all of Languza's wounds. Although the all-purpose vital energy could repair the wound, it would soon be destroyed by the strange force. Because the process of repairing the damage was too fast, there seemed to be no abnormality on the surface. It was as if Lin Yi's treatment did not work. Fortunately, after the all-purpose vital energy entered Languza's body, the consumption of the bleeding was offset by more than half. Languza did not continue to weaken, and he finally recovered a little bit of spirit. Lin brothers, I Languza, sincerely thank you for saving me. Languza raised his big head and said to Lin Yi gratefully, I heard that you humans will recognize the person you respect as your boss and follow his orders. If you can save my life this time, I Languza am willing to recognize you as my boss. Chapter 56-36. It did not seem to be a bad thing if he could have a sea beast royal as a younger brother. At least if he wanted the sea beasts Naiden, he should not need to hunt them himself. He could just ask for some directly. Lin Yi was really a little tempted by Languza's sudden proposal, so Lin Yi could not let anything happen to Languza. After thinking carefully for a while, Lin Yi probed Languza's body with his divine sense. At the same time, he did not forget to warn Languza, don't resist my divine sense. Otherwise, both of us will be in trouble. Okay, I'll listen to you. Languza agreed straightforwardly before withdrawing all of his soul into his primordial spirit. He entered a dormant state with his primordial spirit. It's really thorough. Lin Yi smiled slightly. Languza could indeed completely avoid interfering with Lin Yi's actions by doing this. But in this way, it was equivalent to entrusting his life to Lin Yi. If Lin Yi had any bad intentions, he could easily do something to Languza's body. However, Languza's trust was also a responsibility for Lin Yi. So Lin Yi once again increased the intensity of his divine sense in Languza's body to thoroughly explore Languza's physical condition. It's more serious than I expected. Lin Yi sighed softly and frowned more deeply. Just now, Lin Yi's attention was attracted by the many wounds on the surface of Languza's body, so he did not notice that in Languza's body, there were signs of collapse at the genetic level. If it were not for Lin Yi's super strong divine sense, he might not have been able to find these signs. If his guess was right, it should be the sequelae left by the potion that forcibly enhanced Languza's strength, and now it broke out. The omnipotent Qi could repair the symptoms of this collapse, but it could not stop the continued destruction of the strange force. If this strange force could not be eliminated, even with the endless Qi in the jade pendant space as a support, Languza would not be able to escape the fate of the physical collapse in the end. Lin Yi glanced at Languza, whose eyes were closed. He thought to himself that whether or not Languza would be able to live would really depend on his character. He hoped that his character was still passable as a beast. Lin Yi, who already had a plan in mind, carefully divided the divine sense that invaded Languza's body into an extremely subtle trace, and then directly transformed this trace of divine sense into the spiritual awareness Pillfire, and brazenly rushed into the strange force that was wreaking havoc at the genetic level of Languza. Because the Qi had no effect on these strange forces, Lin Yi had no choice but to take a risk and use the spiritual awareness Pillfire to try to attack these strange forces. Fortunately, Languza believed in Lin Yi and directly absorbed the power of his divine sense into his soul. There was no residue on his body, so Lin Yi's spiritual awareness Pillfire would not accidentally hurt Languza's soul and divine sense. Lin Yi's face showed a dignified expression. Although it was only an extremely small trace of the spiritual awareness Pillfire, He still needed to pay a great deal of attention to control it, lest this spiritual awareness pillfire could not achieve anything and instead become an accomplice of those strange forces. In the blink of an eye, Linny smiled as if a heavy burden had been lifted from his shoulders. That trace of spirit elixir fire, under his control, easily broke into the strange energy and burned away the strange energy that was 6 to 7 times its size. Overall, this number was completely a drop in the ocean, but it represented that Lin Yi's choice was correct. Your beast seems to be good. It is possible to recover in a short time. Linny relaxed and said to Languza with a rare smile. As for whether Languza could hear it or not, it did not matter. Since he'd found a way, Linny naturally wouldn't drag things out. He increased the input of his consciousness, and within a controllable range, he created the most amount of consciousness elixir fire he could muster at once, charging straight at the strange energy within Languza's body. Immediately after the spiritual awareness pill fire was the omnipotent Jinqi that Linny injected. In the front, the spiritual awareness pill fire swept and killed all the enemies, attacked the city and plundered the land, and the omnipotent Jinqi cleaned the battlefield and repaired the city wall. Under the control of Lin Yi, the two forces cooperated with each other extremely well. It was because of the omnipotent Jinqi that Lin Yi had a lot less to worry about. Even if the spiritual awareness pill fire accidentally hurt a little meridian in Languza's body, it would be repaired immediately. After half an hour, the collapse of Languza's genes had completely disappeared. After being repaired and nourished by the omnipotent Jinqi, Languza's genes could be said to have been completely reborn. Originally, he had a strong physique of the sea beast royal family. Now there was a trace of mutation, and he was much stronger than before. It could be said that this was a blessing in disguise. As for the injuries on the body's surface, it was easier to deal with them. Without the source of the strange forces in the deep layer, the forces on the surface of the wounds could not resist Lin Yi's attack, and were soon completely removed. All the wounds were also completely healed under the repair of Lin Yi's omnipotent Jinqi. It's finally done. It's really tiring. Lin Yi withdrew his divine sense and Jinqi, and could not help but let out a long sigh. The Jinqi was replenished by the space of the jade pendant, so it was not a big deal. However, in terms of divine sense, Lin Yi had to supply all of it himself. Moreover, he had to spend a lot of time and effort to carry out fine control. An ordinary person would not be able to persist. Ha 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 ha. That's awesome. You're really cured. After the soul of Languza was awakened by Lin Yi, he immediately felt the condition of his body and laughed excitedly. Then Languza remembered who was the reason why he was able to survive. He immediately turned his head to Lin Yi and said, "You really saved me. So from now on you're my Languza's big brother. As long as Big Brother needs it, Languza will go through fire and water for Big Brother." Lin Yi faintly smiled and said, "If you insist, I don't mind. However, I have a lot of little brothers, and you're not the biggest one. So you have to be mentally prepared." Languza laughed and said, "Big Brother, you're so powerful that you must be the king of the sea beasts in the human race. It's normal for you to have a lot of little brothers. It would be strange if you didn't have any. Big Brother, don't worry, I Languza know my limits." "Well, I'm also very happy that you can say that. There's one more thing to remind you. This time, it can be considered as a blessing in disguise. From the early nascent soul stage to the early profound ascension stage. And because of my treatment, while stabilizing your strength, there are also some changes. As for whether this change is good or bad, you need to study it yourself. So, after you go back, it's best for you to go into seclusion for a period of time." Lin Yi had always taken care of his little brothers, but Languza was already at the early profound ascension stage. Lin Yi couldn't help him in terms of strength, so he could only tell Languza what he had just observed. Chapter 56-37. Languza put away his smile and nodded vigorously. "I know, boss, don't worry. I know what to do. In our Sea Dragon clan, Only the most outstanding geniuses can advance to the profound ascension stage when they reach adulthood. Now I have advanced to the profound ascension stage, before I reach adulthood. This is all thanks to boss. If I, Languza, still don't know how to cherish it, then I'm sorry, boss. Linny was shocked. From Languza's words, Linny could infer that there was a profound ascension stage existence in the Sea Dragon clan. But this was not surprising. After all, Snake Shichiro was already at the Yuanying stage, so it was not surprising that there was a profound ascension stage existence in the Sea Dragon clan. Fortunately, this time they did not become enemies with the sea beasts of the endless sea. Otherwise, if they provoked the Sea Dragon clan, the ancient small Jianghu would be wiped out in minutes. After all, the Sea Dragon clan was also a creature that could move on land. But why did the masters of the Sea Dragon clan never appear? Otherwise, the profound ascension stage would not be a legend of the ancient small Jianghu for thousands of years. It's good that you understand. Go out first, or else Snake Shichiro will be anxious. Although Lin Yi wanted to ask about the Sea Dragon clan, this was already a secret of the Languza clan. It was not good for Lin Yi to inquire about it, so he could only put it aside for now. Languza nodded and followed Lin Yi out of the room. When Snake Shichiro saw Languza behind Lin Yi, he immediately rushed up excitedly and laughed. Good boy! I knew you were lucky. Nothing will happen to you. That's right. Who do you think I, Languza, am? Of course. There was also Boss Lin Yi's heaven-defying methods. That was how he managed to save my life. Languza said proudly, and immediately started bragging about Lin Yi. Snake Shichiro was stunned. You've acknowledged Lin Yi as your boss? He didn't force you, did he? At this point, Snake Shichiro looked at Lin Yi in an unfriendly manner. Although Lin Yi was Languza's savior, if Lin Yi used this as a threat and forcefully accepted a member of the Oceanic Beast clan as a subordinate, he would be looking down on and provoking the Oceanic Beast clan. Languza snorted and said, Snake Shichiro, what are you thinking? Of course I, Languza, am willing to do it. Other than that, do you think anyone can force me to do something I don't want to do? Snake Shichiro thought about it and agreed. He knew Languza's personality the best, so he looked at Lin Yi with an apologetic gaze. Lin Yi didn't care, and waved his hand. If you have something to say, go back and talk. I still have some things to deal with. It's not very convenient for so many of your Oceanic Beast army to stay here. Languza hurriedly said. Boss, don't worry. I will make them withdraw immediately. But I still want to talk with you, boss. How about you let me stay here for a few more days? Before Lin Yi could speak, Snake Shichiro objected. No, this time we made such a big fuss because of you. If you don't go back, how can this matter be resolved? Hurry up and go back with me. Come back in 2 days. Languza thought about it and agreed. Although he wanted to spend a few more days with Lin Yi, Snake Shichiro's words also made sense. Languza could only say resentfully, Fine. Go back, boss. I will come back to find you in 2 days. You will still be here, right? Lin Yi scratched his head. This was really hard to say. After the end of the immemorial grand meeting, all the sects would leave the ruined town. The ruined town would become a wasteland again. If Languza came here to find Lin Yi, he most likely wouldn't be able to find him. Languza saw that Lin Yi didn't speak, so he used his front claw to scratch his chin a few times. He took out a round bead the size of a pigeon egg and handed it to Lin Yi. Boss, this is the communication bead used by the Oceanic Beast Kings. If you want to find me, you only need to put this bead into the water on any shore of the endless sea. I will receive the message. If I want to find you, I can also sense your position through this bead. This thing is not bad. I will accept it. Lin Yi didn't hesitate. With this communication bead, it would be convenient to find Languza in the future. He just didn't know if Languza could still sense Lin Yi's position if he put this thing into the space of the jade pendant. Snake Shichiro looked at Languza's claws and suddenly said, Languza, you are already at the early stage of mysterious ascension, right? Why didn't you transform? Or 2 claws? Languza retracted his claws and smiled. I am still a minor, so I am still a sea dragon. I don't know if when I become an adult and transform into a sea dragon, Will I directly break through the mysterious ascension stage and enter the mountain opening stage? Don't bullshit. There has never been a super expert in the mountain opening stage among the royal family. You should think about when you can become a real sea dragon. Maybe you still have a chance. Snake Shichiro sneered. He didn't believe Languza at all. Lenny looked at Languza thoughtfully, finally understanding the strength of the royal sea beasts. Sea serpents were a race that could evolve. After reaching adulthood, there was a chance for them to evolve into sea serpents. Be it talent or strength, sea serpents were obviously far superior to sea serpents, but they still weren't true dragons. If 1 in 100 of the elites of the sea serpents could evolve into sea serpents, then only 1 in 1,000 sea serpents would have the chance to become a true sea dragon. In other words, if Languza wanted to evolve into a sea dragon, which could be considered a real dragon, the probability was 1 in 100,000. As for now, after the mutation, Lenny couldn't tell how much potential Languza had. Maybe it only needed 1 in 100 to become a sea dragon, or maybe it was less than 1 in a million. Languza and Snake Shichiro didn't notice Lin Yi's thoughts. After a few words, they said goodbye to Lin Yi. The sea beast royal family was still waiting for the report of this operation. Snake Shichiro didn't want to continue to delay, especially before the mission was completed. If there were any more mistakes, his little heart really couldn't bear it. Under the leadership of Languza and Snake Shichiro, the sea beast army quickly disappeared from the outskirts of the ruined town like a receding tide. Lenny asked Yui to gather the 4 big and 10 young ones. After he left, Lenny still needed to confirm the results of the Archean convention. After a short while, all the 4 big and 10 kids gathered together again. Exainegia was the first to come and stand beside Lin Yi. Chapter 56-38. Lin Yi asked in surprise, "Didn't you announce it before?" "All the details have been done. Now it's time to announce the result. Everyone said that we can only proceed with the announcement after Grand Uncle Master arrives." Exainegia's words were full of pride. It was the glory of the Green Cloud sect that Lin Yi could gain the respect of all the sections. "You don't mind the trouble? All right, hurry up and announce it. I have something to say." Lin Yi waved his hand, signaling Exainegia to announce it quickly. Exainegia agreed and turned to the audience. He held his head high and announced loudly, "Everyone, I, Exainegia, will now announce the new ranking of the 4 major sects and families." The audience below the stage cooperated and gave a round of applause. In this immemorial grand meeting, the power structure could be said to have undergone earth-shattering changes, and the biggest change was the strong ascension of the Azure Cloud sect, as well as the rise of the strongest dark horse, the Thousand Blades sect. Thinking that the Thousand Blades sect, one of the top 4 sects, only had 2 members, many people were excited. They wanted to join the Thousand Blades sect after the Archaeozoic Grand Meeting. The head of the top 4 sects and families is our Green Cloud sect. The second is the Shangguan clan, the third is the Thousand Blades sect, and the last is the 5 Elements sect. The division of guards in the Archaeozoic mountain range has been determined. From now on, the distribution of resources in the Archaeozoic underworld will be decided by the new top 4 sections. Thank you. After the simple announcement, Exainegia was ready to let Lin Yi speak. Because Lin Yi said he had something to say, Exainegia naturally wouldn't talk endlessly. However, Ma Zayden didn't know that Lin Yi had something to say. After hearing Exainegia's announcement, she proudly showed off to Tribulation Jinren beside her. "Tribulation Jinren, look at our 5 Elements sect, one of the top 4 sections. Do you want to join us in the future? With our friendship, I, Ma Zayden, will definitely help your Qingkuan sect." Ma Zayden was in a good mood. It was a pity that Chi Daisyi didn't come out because he colluded with the center. Otherwise, it would be even better to show off in front of Chi Daisyi. Daoist Dujia's face darkened. He snorted and said, "The 5 Elements sect fell from the 2nd place to the 4th place. What is there to be proud of? And you, this shameless fellow, actually using your identity as one of the big 4 to become Qing Yun sect's little brother. Even I feel ashamed for you. TSK, you're just envious, jealous, and hateful, right? No matter what, the Five Elements sect is still one of the four great sects. Compared to your Qiankuan sect, which was originally the leader of the four great sects, the new 10 small sects are much stronger. Ma Zedong said indifferently. She had always thought that relying on Lin Yi and Jadian's sect was the smartest decision she had ever made. And from the current results, it was indeed very good. She's just a lackey of Lin Yi. What's there to be proud of? Sage Du Jie's face was full of disdain, but he was actually a little envious of Ma Zedong. Unfortunately, you don't even have a chance. Ma Zedong laughed and said, haven't you heard? The Sea Beast King that martial granduncle Lin Yi saved just now all recognized our martial granduncle as their boss. How awe-inspiring. Who else in the ancient small world can compare with him? The members of the royal Sea Beast clan had all become Lin Yi's underlings. Ma Zedong felt that not only was her decision not wrong, but it was also a super far-sighted golden idea. There was still a big gap between the members of the Five Elements sect and the members of the royal Sea Beast clan. But because of Lin Yi, everyone was on the same level. Sage Du Jie also received the news. Although he wasn't sure, there might be a reason for it, so he didn't speak for a while. Seeing that Sage Du Jie had nothing to say, Ma Zedong was even more proud and continued to show off. Do you understand? Martial granduncle Lin Yi won't accept just anyone. For example, someone like you, who has no status and no skills. Martial granduncle is too lazy to care about you. Let's not talk about the Sea Beast King, but the alchemy ability of our Five Elements sect is beyond your reach. Do you understand? Sage Du Jie simply turned his head and ignored Ma Zedong. If he let him show off alone, he would probably get bored after a while. Lin Yi saw it clearly from the stage and was speechless. This Ma Zedong, he didn't know how to describe him. However, seeing Ma Zedong being so obedient, Lin Yi thought of his own batch of Sea Beast cores. Most of them were Golden Core Stage Sea Beast cores. After taking out 360 Golden Core Stage Sea Beast cores to exchange for the Spirit Jade quota, there were still more than 1,000 Golden Core Stage Sea Beast cores left, which were suitable for Five Elements sect to make Golden Core. Since Five Elements sect was sincere, Lin Yi naturally had to make good use of their resources. When he got back, Lin Yi was prepared to teach Five Elements sect alchemy skills. This way their success rate and quality would improve. After all, Lin Yi had Zhang Liju's alchemy notes. In this aspect, there were many similarities. Ma Zedong, quiet. I'll talk to you about alchemy later. For now, listen to something important. Lin Yi pointed at Ma Zedong faintly, and Ma Zedong immediately cupped her fists and bowed respectfully, as if she was all ears. Then, Ma Zedong took the opportunity when Lin Yi wasn't paying attention, and looked at Sage Du Jie proudly. Her eyes were full of hints. See, Grandmaster Lin Yi still needs me for something, right? You guys can't do it, right? He wouldn't want you even if you sent yourself to him. Lin Yi coughed and ignored Ma Zedong's actions. He took out the little flag that little food spirit gave him, and opened it to the crowd. In the first round of the competition, I found a mechanism in the natural formation of the Spirit Jade vein. This is extremely important to the ancient Jianghu, so I'm going to tell you guys about it now. Hearing Lin Yi mention the Spirit Jade vein, after all, this was directly related to training resources. Who knew what Lin Yi was going to say? Lin Yi took out the speech he had prepared and continued. This mechanism can greatly increase the upper limit of the number of people who can enter the vein, as well as the time limit, but it's not without a price. The price is that you need to put in an inner core of a sea beast above the Golden Core stage in order to activate the mechanism. Senior Lin, may I know the exact number of people in time? Master Lin, how many Golden Core stage inner cores do you need? Grandmaster, this must be a sect in the North Island Alliance. Chapter 5639. After all, although the inner elixirs of sea beasts were precious, The endless sea was so vast that it was still possible to hunt them. However, the Lingyu celestial vein was only open for 10 days a year, and only 20 people could enter at a time. The amount of spiritual jade's mind was too little to supply the entire ancient underworld. This was also the reason why there were so few masters in the ancient underworld. After all, cultivation was a competition of resources. Lenny raised his hand and gestured for the crowd to calm down. Everyone, please calm down and listen to me. The crowd suddenly quieted down. From this, it could be seen how high Lin Yi's prestige was now. Through this mechanism, the number of people entering the Lingyu celestial vein every year can be increased to 200, and the time limit is half a year. 360 inner elixirs of golden core stage sea beasts are required. If there are no inner elixirs of golden core stage sea beasts, 72 inner elixirs of original infant stage sea beasts can be used instead. From today onwards, the rules of entering the Lingyu celestial vein will change. The 4 big and 10 small sects will have a fixed quota, and the rest of the quota will be exchanged with the inner elixirs of sea beasts. Many people's eyes lit up. It was indeed good news to be able to exchange the inner elixirs of sea beasts for the opportunity to enter the Lingyu celestial vein. And it was not limited to the 4 big and 10 small sects. Lenny glanced at the crowd and said with a smile, the specific allocation of the quota and the distribution of the spiritual jades will be decided by the Jadian and the other 3 big and 4 big sects after a discussion. I won't say much about this. This was a little fake. Who didn't know that the Jadian had the final say in the 4 big sects? And the Jadian was Lin Yi's word. In other words, Lin Yi was the one making the final decision. Of course, no one dared to say this out loud. In fact, Lin Yi did not want to get involved in this. He sincerely hoped that Xianijia and the others could come up with a mature plan. After all, the ancient underworld would still be under them in the future. Lin Yi turned around and said to Xianijia. The latter nodded and ordered a disciple of the Blue Cloud sect to bring 360 gold core stage sea beasts inner boluses to Lin Yi. Lin Yi injected his innate chi into the small flag, causing the array pattern on the small flag to emit bursts of golden light. Then, he threw all 360 golden core stage sea beast cores into a black hole that appeared on the side of the small flag. After absorbing the sea monster's inner core, the black hole slowly became wider. The black light also slowly turned white, finally forming a teleportation gate. Lin Yi pointed at the portal and said, "This year's sea beast cores will be provided by our Jadian sect." As the first trial, we don't need any sect to provide any cores, but the quota for each sect will be limited. By the way, you won't encounter any danger when you enter the Lingyu celestial vein through this teleportation gate, unless someone harms you maliciously. Once this situation is discovered, the person and the sect behind him will be permanently disqualified from entering the Lingyu celestial vein. If it was before the ancient grand meeting, the people below the stage would have already started whispering. But now that Lin Yi's prestige was high, the people below the stage tried their best not to say anything, for fear that they would lose the qualification to enter the Lingyu celestial vein. Lin Yi smiled faintly. He withdrew his innate chi and closed the teleportation gate. He rolled up the small flag and handed it to Xianijia. Then, he said to the people below the stage, "After the teleportation gate is open, people can be teleported in at any time within half a year. As long as the limit of 200 people is not exceeded, there will be no possibility of failure. When we have the quota allocation plan, we will let Xianijia handle it directly." After thinking for a while, it seemed that there was nothing more to say. Lin Yi directly waved his hand and said, "The ancient grand meeting is over. The following trade fairs and auctions will continue according to the previous arrangement. Everyone is dismissed." Xianijia was told to disperse, but as soon as Xianijia finished speaking, a large group of people surrounded him. They all wanted to get to know him first, so that they could get a head start in the fight for the free entry into Lingyu Immortal's vein. Lin Yi was speechless for a while. He thought to himself that it was fortunate that he had given the formation flag to Xianijia. Otherwise, it would be very uncomfortable for him to be surrounded. After leaving the crowd quickly, Lin Yi waved to Ma Zedong and said, "Ma Zedong, come here." Without saying a word, Ma Zedong ran over and bowed with a smile on his face. He said, "Granduncle, what can I do for you?" Lin Yi would not be polite to Ma Zedong. He directly said, "There is indeed something. How about this? After the ancient grand meeting is over, you come to the Green Cloud sect in the North Island. I will write down some of my experiences and techniques of alchemy for you. Go back and study them carefully. Then, refine the remaining inner cores of the sea beasts in the gold core stage into golden cores. Do you understand?" "Understood. Granduncle, please rest assured." Ma Zedong was secretly happy. Lin Yi was going to put the 5 Elements sect in an important position. Moreover, he was going to give them pointers on alchemy. Ma Zedong had heard from Master Chun about Lin Yi's alchemy level. It was absolutely incredible. To be able to get pointers from Lin Yi, he would really wake up from his dream with a smile. "Okay, you can go back." Discuss with Exine about the spirit jade celestial vein. I still have something to do. I will wait for you at the Green Cloud sect in the North Island. Lin Yi waved his hand to indicate that Ma Zedong could leave. Ma Zedong quickly cupped his fists and bowed respectfully. "Thank you, Granduncle. I will rush to the Green Cloud sect in the North Island as soon as possible." To be honest, Ma Zedong could not wait to ask Lin Yi for advice on alchemy. However, Lin Yi had something to do. Ma Zedong could not help it. He could only plan to wait at the Green Cloud sect in the North Island after saying goodbye to Exine. Lin Yi found Yue, Primordial Invincible, and Shangguan Feixing, the 3 experts in the early stage of the mysterious Ascension realm. They sat on the flying spirit beast and flew to Luo Mountain again. After rescuing the blue dragon, Lin Yi was still not assured about Defeng's safety. Therefore, he wanted to confirm it again. He brought the 3 people with him, so that he could have some help in the battle. At least, they could play a role in restraining the enemy. By the time they got to Luo Mountain, the central base was already in ruins. Other than the destruction Lin Yi had caused, the Glasses doctor had probably cleaned up the place after he came back as well. There was nothing of value left. Lin Yi's divine sense swept the entire base, searching inch by inch. He was afraid of seeing Defeng's body. Fortunately, there was no such result in the end. Instead, he found a message left by Defeng in a secret code. Chapter 5640. Knowing that Dafeng was fine, Lin Yi heaved a sigh of relief. As for leaving the ancient underworld, Lin Yi was also quite happy. At least the ancient underworld could have a relatively quiet period of development. At this time, the matters of the ancient underworld had basically come to an end. Lin Yi could finally go back to Heaven Stage Island with peace of mind. To be honest, he really missed Heaven Stage Island. Since there was nothing left in Luo Mountain, Lin Yi naturally wouldn't stay any longer. He directly let Primordial Invincible and Shangguan Feixing return to Ruin Town to meet up with the people from their sects, while Lin Yi took Yue back to the Blue Cloud sect in the north first. On the way, Lin Yi decided to first tell Yue about his departure, so he controlled the flying spirit beast to fly beside Yue. "Yue, I should be leaving the ancient underworld in 2 days. At that time, you will stay in the Blue Cloud sect in the north and guard it for me. If there is a problem you can't solve, ask Primordial Invincible and Shangguan Feixing for help. Both of them are stronger than you and will be very good reinforcements," Lin Yi said calmly. However, Yue felt that Lin Yi was giving him a warning. "Master, where are you going? Why don't you take Yue with you? Yue will definitely take care of everything for Master." Yue's face was full of hypocrisy, and he pretended to ask to take him with him. In fact, Yue's heart was already blooming with joy. "Wahahaha, this little bastard Lin Yi wants to leave the ancient underworld? Then won't I be free? I don't know where this little bastard is going. It's best if he doesn't come back in the future. After he leaves here, should I first take over the Blue Cloud sect? Forget it, after Lin Yi leaves, I will be the boss of the Blue Cloud sect. I don't need to take over so obviously. After all, Lin Yi will definitely arrange for Primordial Invincible and Shangguan Feixing to monitor me. Yui thought a little too much, but he maintained the hypocritical expression on his face very well. Lin Yi smiled faintly and did not pay attention to Yui. Anyway, Lin Yi would not reveal the matter of Heaven Stage Island to Yui for the time being. It was best for him to stay and take care of the Blue Cloud sect. Now Yui, who had the primordial spirit, was no longer a small puppet in the secular world. He could judge all favorable opportunities on his own, and he could also move and cultivate freely. With him, the Green Cloud sect in the North Island was still very safe. As for Yu Yi's plan to completely get rid of Lin Yi after he became stronger, it was simply impossible. As Lin Yi's puppet, when Lin Yi wanted to kill him, he only needed to think about it. When Lin Yi brought Yui back to the Blue Cloud sect in the North Island, the Archean auction in the ruined town was not over yet, so Exionijia and the others had not returned. Fortunately, Wu Chintian and the others were practicing in the sect and had not seen Lin Yi for a while. When they heard that he was back, they immediately ended their practice and came out to meet him. The scene was very lively for a while. After introducing Yui to these people that Lin Yi brought from the secular world, this guy immediately got along well with Wu Chintian and the others. He bragged a little, and the atmosphere became more and more lively. Although Yui did not participate in Lin Yi's entire trip to the Archean auction, he spent half a day in the ruined town and knew everything about Lin Yi. Although his goal was to understand Lin Yi and find a chance to get rid of his control, it was just right for him to brag to these brothers of Lin Yi. Lin Yi smiled and shook his head, not caring about them. He was not a person who liked to talk and brag, so naturally, he had no interest in participating. He turned back to look at Lingshan, who was looking at him tenderly and affectionately. Lin Yi smiled faintly and used qi to communicate. "Silly girl. Do you feel like you want to eat me when you look at me like that?" Lingshan blushed, knowing that Lin Yi was talking to her alone. She looked at him with a mixture of annoyance and happiness, but nodded firmly. What he meant was, "Silly girl wants to eat you. Do you dare let me eat you?" Lin Yi felt a little awkward. At his current level, he didn't have to worry about what happened after a man and a woman were in love, but he still had so many girlfriends. Meng Yao and the other girls were still unconscious. If he did something with someone else, he'd feel like he'd let Meng Yao and the others down. It was because of this little obsession in his heart that Lin Yi didn't have a deeper relationship with any of his women after reaching his current level. In actuality, Lin Yi wasn't someone who took the initiative and was a bit shy as well. People like him. He suddenly remembered the first time he came down the mountain to Meng Yao's house, when Yushu caught him wiping his snot. Thinking of Meng Yao and Yushu, Lin Yi's heart felt heavy. His strength was enough to dominate the entire ancient Jianghu, but it wasn't much on Sky Class Island. He didn't know when he'd be able to see Zhang Liju again. Lingshan was preparing to have a good talk with Lin Yi. After all, they'd been apart a lot, and it wasn't easy for them to come to the ancient Jianghu. Lin Yi had been running around everywhere, but there were other girls around him. Ziyu and Lin Yi didn't seem to have a clear relationship, but the girl was all grown up now, and her feelings for Lin Yi weren't that pure anymore. As expected, Ziyu skipped over to Lin Yi and reached out to pinch his face. "Lin Yi bro, why were you gone for so long? We were in isolation before, and you didn't even wake us up when you came back. If we didn't come out now, we wouldn't be able to see you, right? I heard you're going back to Sky Class Island." "Can you take us there?" "You guys can't go. Just stay here and train. I'll be back." Lin Yi smiled faintly as he stroked Ziyu's hair lovingly. This girl was becoming more and more beautiful, and it was hard for Lin Yi to put his finger on her. But you just have to take it one step at a time. "Oh, but can't we go back to the common world?" Ziyu didn't have any interest in staying here. She liked crowds. "You guys can go back, as long as you have enough spirit jade. We don't lack spirit jade here." Lin Yi really didn't lack spirit jade now, and there would only be more and more of them in the ancient Jianghu. "If you guys want to go back after I leave, just get Xi and Ijia to activate the formation. Alright, go back to Sky Class Island then. But be careful, come visit us often. Ziyu didn't want him to leave. Chapter 5641. I miss Chunxi. Ziyu's eyes reddened. There's been no news of her, and I'm pretty worried. You should try to find her as soon as possible when you get to Sky Class Island. I will. Lin Yi sighed softly. He still had a couple of girls missing from Sky Class Island, and he didn't know where they went. It was time to go back and look for them. Qikuan and Qijiu couldn't interrupt, either, and could only giggle. Their strength had been increasing really fast recently, and they were really happy. Lingshan, on the other hand, waited patiently for Ziyu to finish. She was a little sister, after all, and she had to let her have her way. But, just as they were talking, a Blue Cloud disciple came running in. Master, the head of Five Elements sect, Ma Zayden, and their refiner Master Chen, are here to see you. Lin Yi paused. Already? Why aren't Xianijia and the others back yet? Lingshan didn't have any good feelings towards this Ma Zayden, or whatever Five Elements sect. As expected, Five Elements sect didn't have anything good. The common world was like this, and the ancient Jianghu was like this as well. It wasn't easy for her to talk to Lin Yi. So where did these troublemakers come from? Lin Yi saw that Lingshan was about to go berserk as well, and smiled as he held her hand. These two are refiners from the ancient Jianghu. Let's go see them together. Sure. Lingshan felt Lin Yi's warm and strong hand, and that little bit of unhappiness disappeared. A sweet smile appeared on her face as she nodded. As long as she could be with Lin Yi, she would be very happy. Right, is there any news of my sister Songling Rui? I miss her too. Lingshan said softly. Lin Yi fell silent after hearing Ziyu mention Lin Yi, and held her hand lightly. Don't worry, she'll be fine. I'll bring them back when I get back. Lingshan was a little disappointed, but there was nothing she could do about it. She didn't say anything else after that. Ziyu saw Lin Yi and Lingshan walk out hand in hand, and a slight disappointment flashed in her eyes. She turned around and went back to bragging with Yu Yi and the others, so Lin Yi didn't notice that at all. As far as Ziyu was concerned, she'd occupied Lin Yi for too long already. She'd just let Lingshan have this time. In the guest hall of the Green Cloud sect, Ma Zayden and Master Chen stood respectfully while waiting for Lin Yi. They had no intention of sitting down. Clearly, they were very used to the change in their identities. Seeing Lin Yi and Lingshan come out, the two immediately cupped their fists and bowed. Ma Zayden greets Master Lin. Greetings, Martial Grandaunt's wife. Lingshan felt a sweetness in her heart. She felt that it was a bit of a mouthful to call her Grandmaster's wife, but since she was Lin Yi's wife, she didn't have to fuss about it. Even her impression of this Ma Zayden and Chen Biden changed a little. This was the first time Lin Yi heard of Master Chen's name, so it was Chen Biden. What a mouthful! No wonder he always called him Master. After signaling for Lingshan to sit beside the main seat, Lin Yi waved his hand. Sit down and talk. The two of them expressed their gratitude, and sat down respectfully. Chen Biden thought for a moment and stood up. She cupped her fists and bowed. Uncle Master Lin, I have offended you before. Please punish me. I've already forgotten what happened in the past. What's there to punish? Lin Yi smiled faintly and waved his hand casually. Sit down. We've all been serving different masters before, that's all. From now on, we're one family, no need to talk like that. Thank you for your magnanimity, Master Lin. Chen Biden's face was full of gratitude. After bowing again, she sat back on the chair and said, To be honest, ever since I saw Martial Granduncle's alchemy skills for the first time, I've been yearning for Martial Granduncle. Thanks to sect leader Ma's wisdom, I have the opportunity to ask Martial Granduncle for alchemy skills. Ma Zayden was proud of himself in his heart. He deeply believed Chen Biden's words, but he put on a stern expression on his face and said, Elder Chen, this time Master Granduncle is magnanimous and won't fuss over it with you. But you should remember this lesson. If something similar happens again, don't blame me, Ma Zayden, for being impolite. Yes, Master Ma is right. Chen Biden nodded humbly. not at all like the arrogance Lin Yi had when they first met. Although Master Lin forgave you, and I can't punish you anymore, I'll remember this mistake. In the future, listen to Master Lin's teachings, and do things for Master Lin to make up for your mistakes. Do you understand? Ma Zedon's words were blunt, but in fact, it was just to make Lin Yi feel more comfortable. After all, Lin Yi said that he didn't care about the past, but who knew if he really didn't care about it? If there were any knots left in his heart, it would always be a hidden danger. He might as well make it clear first, not only to let Lin Yi vent his anger, but also to completely wash away Chen Baiden's impression in Lin Yi's heart. Lin Yi was naturally aware of Ma Zedon's intentions, so he immediately smiled faintly. Okay, I said that the past is in the past, so you don't have to worry about it. Yes, I will obey Master Lin's decree. Ma Zedon was completely relieved this time, knowing that Lin Yi really wouldn't find trouble with Chen Biden again. However, as she spoke, she became more and more respectful. Lin Yi thought that he was about to return to Heaven Step Island, and he didn't have much time to stay in the ancient small underworld. There were still many things to deal with, so he didn't want to beat around the bush with Ma Zedon and Chen Biden, so he directly said, "This time, I called you here to exchange alchemy experiences with you. You should be mentally prepared, right?" Ma Zedon and Chen Biden hurriedly waved their hands and said, "We dare not. Master Lin is too polite. Disciple is here to learn. How can I be qualified to exchange with Master Lin?" "You don't have to be modest. To tell you the truth, my alchemy method is completely different from the alchemy methods of this era. It is the ancient alchemy method. Although some of the techniques are interlinked, it might not be able to help you much, so it's best that you don't have too much hope." Lin Yi was confident that Zhang Liju's alchemy notes could help increase the success rate and quality of 5 Elements Sect's alchemy, but of course, he couldn't be too confident. What if it was really useless? Chapter 5642. After a little hesitation, Ma Zedon carefully asked, "Martial Uncle, please allow this disciple to ask, what is the difference between your alchemy technique and ours? Don't tell me you don't use Divine Sense alchemy fire?" This time it was Lin Yi's turn to be surprised. How could there be people in the ancient Jianghu who knew that alchemy fire was not something that could be condensed with Divine Sense? When he first came to the ancient Jianghu, he didn't know that there was such a thing as Divine Sense alchemy fire. Chinese novels. Seeing the surprised expression on Lin Yi's face, Ma Zedon and Chen Biden immediately became excited. Chen Biden rushed to ask, "Martial Uncle, did you really master the legendary True Qi Attribute Alchemy Fire?" Lin Yi couldn't help but be speechless. True Qi Attribute Alchemy Fire was already a legendary technique in the ancient Jianghu. There were many records in the secular world, right? Although it wasn't to the extent of being common, it was just a little better than common, right? Speaking of which, the 5 Elements Sect of the secular world and the 5 Elements Chamber of Commerce of the Heaven Step Island did not produce any alchemy experts. There should be some connection between them and the 5 Elements Sect of the ancient Jianghu. This connection might be traced back to the Heaven Step Island. Was the inheritance of the Divine Sense alchemy fire and the True Qi alchemy fire separated? Why are you so excited? Lin Yi asked in confusion. From his point of view, although the pure Qi alchemy fire could be divided into different attributes, the spirit alchemy fire was basically a general type of alchemy fire without attributes. However, there didn't seem to be any difference between the two. This could be most directly reflected in the super alchemy fire bomb. After becoming a bomb, the power of the two alchemy fires was actually the same. Ma Zedon took a deep breath, calmed her emotions and said, "Martial Uncle, don't you know? Our ancient Jianghu's Divine Sense alchemy fire is actually incomplete. Although it can be used for alchemy, it is said that it can only be used to refine profound level 1 pills. It's just that there is no profound level 1 alchemist in the current ancient Jianghu, so there is no way to verify this legend." Grand Martial Uncle, Sect Leader Ma is right. Because the Divine Sense pill fire is flawed, although the upper limit of alchemy cannot be verified, the success rate of alchemy is enough to prove this problem. In fact, in the records of alchemy, the success rate of alchemy should not be so low. The main reason is the lack of a true qi attribute alchemic fire. Chen Biden said excitedly. Originally, he was worried whether Lin Yi's superb alchemy skills would be suitable for him, but now there was no need to worry about it. If Lin Yi really mastered the method of condensing the true qi Dan fire, then as long as he found a way to integrate the divine sense Dan fire, he could immediately double the level of alchemy. Lin Yi patted his forehead, feeling a little annoyed in his heart. All along, he had used two kinds of pill fires to create super pill fire bombs, but he had never thought that in fact, the spiritual pill fire and the true qi pill fire could be completely fused together to refine pills. After all, the spiritual pill fire did not have an attribute, and any attribute of the true qi pill fire could be integrated into the spiritual pill fire without any hindrance. In this way, the problem of Lin Yi being unable to refine pills for a long time could be solved. After all, Lin Yi had no problem condensing any pill fire. The only obstacle was changing the temperature and intensity of the pill fire. After having the experience of controlling the direction of explosion of the super pill fire bomb, Lin Yi felt that after adding the spiritual pill fire, there was a great chance to overcome the previous difficulties. If it were not for Ma Zedong and Chen Biden, Lin Yi would have already tried it on the spot. In this case, I will first teach you some simple mnemonics to condense the true qi Dan fire. After you have figured it out, I will give you some alchemy experience. If you can successfully integrate the two kinds of pill fires, it can be regarded as finding a new possibility for the development of the small Jianghu in ancient times. As he spoke, Lin Yi stood up and walked to the side of the desk. He picked up the pen and paper that he had asked someone to prepare earlier, and quickly copied down some of the methods of condensing the true qi Dan fire. These weren't the things in Zhang Liju's notes, but some scattered records that Lin Yi had collected on Sky Class Island. It was much better than the common worlds, but still not as good as Zhang Liju's. Lin Yi didn't know what Zhang Liju thought about teaching him the methods of refining the true qi Dan fire, so he usually wouldn't take out Zhang Liju's notes if he could substitute them. Ma Zedong and Chen Biden looked at each other. They knew that Lin Yi was copying down the methods of condensing the true qi Dan fire from the legends, and all of a sudden, they felt an itch in their hearts, but they didn't dare walk behind Lin Yi to look, afraid that they would make Lin Yi unhappy. They could only keep twisting their bodies, as if the chair they were sitting on was full of nails. After a while, Lin Yi came back with 2 or 3 pages of paper and handed it to Ma Zedong. The paper was thin, but it made Ma Zedong feel as if it weighed 1,000 kilograms. She raised her trembling hands to receive it. "Thank you, Grand Master." Ma Zedong glanced at it and immediately thanked Lin Yi solemnly. Chen Biden followed beside Ma Zedong and bowed solemnly, expressing her gratitude to Lin Yi. Lin Yi waved his hand nonchalantly. "The fact that you guys can understand it is the best way to thank me. Start studying it now. I'll go write down some more notes and give them to you later." Ma Zedong and Chen Biden were overjoyed and thanked him again. After suppressing their excitement, they started studying Lin Yi's handwritten notes. They realized that Lin Yi's notes were all methods of forming true qi Dan fire, and so they took one each and started reading. Lin Yi didn't bother with them anymore and turned around to write down some notes and tips. It was still the stuff he collected on Sky Class Island, and it was no problem to give it to Ma Zedong and the others. After he was done, Lin Yi realized that Lingshan had been sitting quietly on the chair the whole time, watching Lin Yi's every move with a gentle gaze. Lin Yi put down his pen and smiled. "What's wrong with you today? You seem a little different from before." Lingshan shook her head with a smile. "Silly girl is still a silly girl. I just want to look at you a few more times. Otherwise you'll be going back to Sky Class Island soon." Lin Yi paused, not expecting Lingshan to say something like that. But it seemed that his conversation with Chun Shi had touched on Lingshan's sensitive side, making her so gentle. "You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Sword of Destiny YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.